Chapter 1865. Sunset Lake inside the palace. Chun-Shi followed Zhongli Mingjing through the bronze door, and after passing through several long corridors, they finally arrived at a hall that emanated an elegant and ancient style. There were 7 wide chairs made of red sandalwood on both sides of the hall. At the center of the hall, there was a luxurious dragon chair made of 1,000,000-year-old profound ice. "He'll guide you, everyone. Please take a seat." Zhongli Mingjing walked to the dragon chair and waved his hand with a smile. "Sit." Yu Haoran turned his head and gestured to Qing Feng and the others. He took the lead and walked to the seat of honor on the north side of the hall and directly sat down. Afterwards, Qing Feng, Yu Siki, Lu Yuan, Palace, and the long-armed ape all chose a seat and sat down. Although there was an empty seat on the north side of the hall, Zhongli Shuiqin thought about it for a moment and directly stood behind Yu Haoran with an obedient attitude. Zhongli Mingjing's eyes flashed with a trace of dissatisfaction when he saw Zhongli Shuiqin's choice. However, he didn't say anything and only nodded to the guard at the entrance of the hall. After the guard cupped his hands and left, Zhongli Mingjing sat behind the dragon chair and lightly clapped his hands. Afterwards, 63 dignified and beautiful girls quickly walked into the hall. Each of them carried a tray made of top-quality warm jade. On the tray were teacups and 8 types of top-quality spirit fruits. After the 63 girls placed the teacups and top-quality spirit fruits on the wooden table and leisurely left, Zhongli Mingjing sat on the dragon chair and clapped his hands again. Immediately after, 7 beautiful women with jade-like bones and icy skin, wearing white translucent silk dresses, entered the hall. Along with the music coming from the corner of the hall, the 7 beautiful girls began to dance. Together with their translucent silk dresses, the 7 beautiful girls' frowns and smiles were filled with boundless temptation. Unfortunately, in the face of the 7 beautiful dancers, Yu Haoran and Qing Feng's eyes were clear and did not have any distracting thoughts. Lu Yuan and Yu Siki, on the other hand, closed their eyes and immersed themselves in cultivation. The scarlet loath and the long-armed ape were focused on the top spiritual fruits. Yu Haoran and the others' reactions caused a trace of disappointment to flash in Zhongli Mingjing's eyes. He waved his hand at the 7 beautiful girls who had finished their dance and indicated for them to leave the hall. Afterwards, Zhongli Mingjing picked up the teacup on the wooden table beside him and smiled at Yu Haoran. "He'll guide you. The spirit tea in the cup is called the Whisk Whisk. It has the effect of calming one's mind, eliminating inner demons, and improving one's state of mind. It was ranked 3rd among the 7 spirit teas of the Middle Ages." "Thank you." After nodding and thanking Zhongli Mingjing, Yu Haoran stretched out his hand and picked up the teacup on the wooden table. As he lifted the lid, an alluring fragrance assaulted his nostrils. "Good tea." Qing Feng exhaled a mouthful of hot air and took a sip of the spirit tea. After carefully tasting and savoring the aftertaste, Qing Feng's face revealed a satisfied expression. Yu Haoran, who also put the teacup to his mouth, ordered the tower's spirit in his sea of consciousness after a terrifying cold light flashed in his eyes while he lowered his head to taste the tea. Thowling used the space-time energy of the victor to transfer away half of the poisonous tea in the cup. "Got it. Poisonous tea." Hearing Yu Haoran's order call the spirit tea poisonous tea, Thowling's body surged with a strong, murderous aura. At the same time, he immediately used the space-time energy of the victor to absorb half of the tea in the teacup out of thin air. "Good tea." After Thowling had absorbed half of the poisonous tea, Yu Haoran pretended to savor the aftertaste and then praised like Qing Feng. After hearing Yu Haoran and Qing Feng's praise, Zhongli Mingjing's eyes revealed a slightly proud smile. Just as he was about to further explain the origin and preciousness of the clear horsetail whisk tea leaves, Qing Feng, who was about to take a second sip of the spirit tea, changed his expression and directly dropped the teacup in his hand. "Senior brother Qing Feng, what happened to you?" After hearing the sound of the teacup shattering on the ground, Yu Haoran, who knew that the toxicity of the poisonous tea had begun to take effect, hurriedly pretended to be confused and asked with concern, "There's poison in the tea." Sweat dripped from his forehead like rain, and his ruddy face was instantly replaced by a pale face. Qing Feng, whose aura was rapidly declining to that of an ordinary person, replied weakly, "Zhongli Mingjing, you're so vicious." After hearing Qing Feng's reply, Yu Haoran's expression immediately changed. He immediately forced out a large amount of sweat and quickly sealed his own cultivation. After that, his face was as pale as paper, and he weakly pointed at Zhongli Mingjing and said, "Fortunately, Lu Yuan and Yusiki, who were immersed in cultivation, did not have the time to taste the tea. Palace and Long-Armed Ape were far more interested in the spirit fruit than the spirit tea, so they also did not have the mood to taste the tea. Therefore, after seeing Yu Haoran and Qing Feng poisoned, the two men and two beasts immediately surrounded them and then angrily glared at Zhongli Mingjing with murderous intent. This is impossible. In a situation where they had completely reconciled, Yu Haoran and Qing Feng would not start a war for no reason. Therefore, their current situation should be that they were really poisoned. However, he did not poison them at all, unless someone wanted Yu Haoran's life. When he thought of the reason why Yu Haoran had taken the initiative to visit him, and how Yu Haoran and the others had killed more than 100 experts of the Zhongli family, Zhongli Mingjing immediately guessed who the person who had poisoned them was. He hurriedly reprimanded with a stern expression, "Zhongli Qingyang, get your ass in here." After hearing Zhongli Mingjing's reprimand, Zhongli Qingyang, who had a complacent smile on his face, walked into the hall with more than 20 experts with extraordinary temperaments. When he saw Yu Haoran, whose face was as pale as paper, leaning weakly against the back of the chair, the smile on his face became even more radiant. "Zhongli Qingyang, why did you poison him?" Zhongli Mingjing suddenly stood up. His eyes were burning with a raging fire as he questioned, "Ancestor Mingjing, please don't be angry. Let me explain first." Zhongli Qingyang did not mind Zhongli Mingjing's furious questioning and tried to persuade him with a smile. "Zhongli Qingyang, I'm sure you know very well what kind of person I am. I hope your explanation can satisfy me. Otherwise, you know very well the severity of the consequences." Zhongli Mingjing, who had returned to his dragon throne, did not hide the intense killing intent in his eyes as he threatened Zhongli Qingyang. "Qingyang understands." Zhongli Qingyang replied fearlessly with his hands cupped together. He then looked at Yu Haoran with intense hatred in his eyes. 100 martial sovereigns and Emperor Wu elites, a first tribulation demigod deacon, a third tribulation demigod elder, and 2 martial gods, Xuanna and Ji Yuan. Even during the destruction of ancient times, our Zhongli family had not suffered such heavy losses. Just because your marriage proposal was rejected, Yu Haoran, you've gone mad and slaughtered so many of our clansmen. Chapter 1866. Sunset Lake within the palace. In the face of Zhongli Qingyang's hateful glare, Yu Haoran simply glanced at him. Then he took out the antidote pill he had refined some time ago and handed it to Qing Feng. Afterwards, he raised his head and looked at Zhongli Mingjing, who sat on the throne, as he asked with a trace of mockery, "Senior Mingjing, is this the way you treat your guests?" Zhongli Mingjing only smiled awkwardly in the face of Yu Haoran's mockery, but he did not give any explanation. He only turned his head to Zhongli Qingyang, indicating for him to continue explaining the situation and why he had the confidence to poison Qing Feng. "Ancestor Mingjing, when you had just awakened, Qingyang had described the current situation to you in detail. You had also made your own judgment based on the current situation. That is to do your best to maintain your relationship with Destiny's Child, Ji Xing, and then use the Destiny's Child ability to control fate to protect the clan through the immeasurable calamity." Zhongli Qingyang walked to the main seat on the right side of the hall and clasped his hands at Zhongli Mingjing as he continued his explanation. "The marriage between Shuaiqin and Destiny's Child concerns the lives of hundreds of thousands of clansmen of our Zhongli clan, as well as the future of our Zhongli clan." Zhongli Qingyang turned to Yu Haoran and looked at Zhongli Shuaiqin, who stood behind Yu Haoran, as he roared with a trace of savagery. As a result, anyone who dares to interfere with the marriage between my daughter and Destiny's Child will be the mortal enemy of our Zhongli clan. I, Zhongli Qingyang, would do everything in my power to destroy them. Yu Haoran revealed a slightly complicated expression when he heard the real reason behind Zhongli Qingyang's objection to the marriage between Wu Zhengjun and Zhongli Shuiqin. This was because he had never thought that the patriarch of the Zhongli clan, who was the leader of the 5 great hidden clans, would be so interested in Destiny's Child that he would not hesitate to ruin his daughter's lifelong happiness. If he had known earlier that Destiny's Child's identity could facilitate the perfect marriage between Wu Zhengjun and Zhongli Shuiqin, he would have only needed to secretly reveal his identity to Zhongli Qingyang. That way, there would not be any conflict between them, and he would not need to spend so much effort to prepare a gift. But unfortunately, the irreconcilable hatred had already pushed them to the point of breaking off all ties. Next, they could only use even more bloody means to achieve Wu Zhengjun and Zhongli Shuiqin's wish to be together and resolve the grudges between them. Zhongli Qingyang, even Zhongli Mingjing, the one with the highest cultivation and the strongest strength, is no match for senior brother Qingfeng. In that case, what means do you have to pull out my tendons and skin me alive? Yu Haoran's pale face gradually turned red, and his depressed aura gradually increased. He gradually removed his disguise, and his eyes were filled with mockery as he asked, Yu Haoran, if you and Qingfeng don't taste the spiritual tea of the clear horsetail whisk, I, Zhongli Qingyang, can only use a special method to summon a few supreme ancestors from the boundless void. Although Yu Haoran gradually showed signs of detoxification, Zhongli Qingyang, who had full confidence in the power of the strong poison, retorted with a complacent smile. However, you and Qingfeng coveted the spiritual tea for the improvement of your state of mind and drank the level 99 bones and 9 souls poison in the spiritual tea. Countless years of cultivation are about to disappear. Your life and death are in my hands now. Qingyang, Yu Haoran has really been poisoned by the level 99 bones and 9 souls poison. After hearing Zhongli Qingyang's rebuttal, Zhongli Mingjing stood up abruptly and asked with an agitated expression. After nodding, Zhongli Qingyang used his Yuan Qi to wrap Yusiki's teacup in front of Zhongli Qingjing and explained. Ancestor Mingjing, because the 9 palace 9 bones and 9 souls poison is very difficult to refine and the family does not have a lot of it in stock, I only mixed it in the spiritual tea of Qingfeng, Yu Haoran, and Yusiki. The 9 palace 9 bones and 9 souls poison was created by Poison Heart Old Man, a supreme poison expert in the Middle Ages. However, because it was too long ago and the poison recipe was lost, it was not listed in the Tianxian Continent's 100 Poisons ranking. Although it was not listed in the Tianxian Continent's 100 Poisons ranking, the 9 palace 9 bones and 9 souls poison's power was not inferior to the top 3 poisons on the 100 Poisons ranking. It had the terrifying power to erase the cultivation of divine spirits and supreme masters. Therefore, Zhongli Mingjing, who took the teacup, did not rashly use his divine thought to check it. Instead, he opened up an independent space and took out a specially made silver needle and inserted it into the teacup. Soon, 9 green halos appeared on the surface of the silver needle. Huh! Zhongli Mingjing threw the teacup and silver needle to the ground and suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. Along with his extremely arrogant laughter, a strong, murderous aura quickly rose from his body. Yu Haoran, ever since I, Zhongli Mingjing, became famous in the Middle Ages, I have never lowered my head to an opponent, nor have I taken the initiative to admit defeat. However, you made me suffer the humiliation of lowering my head and admitting defeat. Zhongli Mingjing, who had laughed for almost 30 seconds, suddenly stopped laughing. His eyes were filled with endless anger as he roared. At this moment, only the blood of Yu Haoran can wash away the humiliation of lowering my head. At this moment, only your life, Yu Haoran, will be able to restore my confidence in my martial path. Ignoring Zhongli Mingjing's arrogant roar, Yu Haoran used his divine thought to take out the poisonous herbs from his storage ring. At the same time, he used the nothingness pill condensation technique to refine the herbs. Just as Zhongli Mingjing's roar fell, the 18 poisonous herbs were refined into a drop of pitch-black poisonous liquid that emitted a tempting fragrance. Yu Haoran made a sincere request as he controlled the poisonous liquid to float to Qing Feng's mouth with his divine thought. Senior Brother Qing Feng, if you believe in my poison Dao ability, please take the poisonous liquid immediately to remove the poison in your 9 palaces, 9 bones, and 9 souls. Without the slightest hesitation, Qing Feng directly opened his mouth and swallowed the poisonous liquid to prove his trust in Yu Haoran's poison Dao ability. As the poisonous liquid in his body began to take effect, Qing Feng's cultivation, which had been removed, began to gradually recover. His pale face gradually became rosy, his depressed aura gradually became stronger, and the anger in his eyes was replaced by a murderous aura. Zhongli Qingyang, I have to say that your methods are indeed cunning and insidious. After Qing Feng swallowed the poisonous liquid without any hesitation, Yu Haoran stood up and gestured to Lu Yuan and Palace, who were standing in front of him, to move aside. Then, he took out the half-cup of spiritual tea, which had been sealed by Thaling, from his sea of consciousness, and said with a slight smile. Chapter 1867. Sunset Lake within the palace. Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing's expressions changed when they saw Yu Haoran take out half a cup of spiritual tea. Of course, the real reason why their expressions changed was that Yu Haoran didn't drink the spiritual tea mixed with the 9 palaces, 9 bones, and 9 souls poison. So he still had the ability to weaken God power and soul power and cut off the ability to sense the mysteries of laws. It was also because of the Poison Emperor realm that he had mentioned earlier. Thus, everyone in the Zhongli clan looked at Qing Feng. They wanted to see if the poison that Yu Haoran had just refined could remove the 9 palaces, 9 bones, and 9 souls poison. Qing Feng's aura had returned to his peak, and he directly shattered the chair he was sitting on as he faced everyone's attention. Afterwards, he took out his origin sword that had reached the peak of God tier and pointed it at Zhongli Mingjing. Zhongli Mingjing, today either you die or I die. Zhongli Mingjing raised his head and glanced at Yu Haoran as he saw that Qing Feng's cultivation and abilities had returned to his peak. When he saw the coldness and indifference in Yu Haoran's eyes, he immediately knew that lowering his head and admitting defeat wouldn't be able to resolve the conflict between them. If he wanted to live, he could only use the clan's resources. Thus, Zhongli Mingjing turned his head and instructed Zhongli Qingyang. Qingyang, I will try my best to hold back Yu Haoran and Qing Feng. You should seize the time to use your bloodline and soul fusion technique to inform Ancestor Zhenfeng and Ancestor Zhenyu who are hiding on the comet. Zhongli Zhenfeng and Zhongli Zhenyue were brothers from the same mother, and they were supreme existences that had become sovereigns in the Zhongli clan. At the same time, the comet they were on was the closest star to the profound sky continent. They could return to the Sunset Lake in a short 10 minutes. Zhongli Qingyang nodded with a sunken face after hearing Zhongli Mingjing's instructions. He quickly retreated to a corner of the hall and took out a small gray tower. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out 9 mouthfuls of essence blood before he quickly formed seals with his fingers. Yu Haoran, the simplified version of a 9-palace 9-bins mystic formation, can completely isolate the aura of the bloodline soul fusion. Therefore, you don't have to worry about Zhongli Qingyang being able to summon the supreme experts of the clan. Sensing Yu Haoran's nervousness caused by Zhongli Qingyang's secret technique, the Thaling in his sea of consciousness hastily reminded him. After receiving Thaling's reminder, Yu Haoran let out a long sigh of relief and couldn't help but sigh with a smile. Thaling, it seems that you and the Qingping sword are indeed fated. If it wasn't for Zhongli Qingyang's sinister use of the 9 palaces, 9 bones, 9 souls poison, if it wasn't for Zhongli Mingjing decisively falling out with him, in that case, for the sake of Wu Jinjun and Zhongli Shuiqin, not only could he not take the initiative to ask for the Qingping sword from Zhongli Mingjing, but he also had to use the methods of the Destiny's Child to protect the Zhongli family in the future. But now, Yu Haoran, Just like what I said just now, it's my fortune to obtain it, and it's my fate to lose it. Things like fate are unpredictable and unpredictable. After hearing Yuhaoran's sigh, the Thaling's heart was once again filled with boundless joy and anticipation, and he couldn't help but joke. Without replying to Thaling's joke, Yuhaoran used his mind to inform the Life Calamity Spirit Mouse to collect the auras of all the experts of the Zhongli family in the hall, and then use the Destiny Steel to control their fates. After hearing Yuhaoran's orders, the Life Calamity Spirit Mouse quickly collected the auras of the 27 Zhongli family members in the hall and found each person's name according to the aura. Then, using the ability of the Destiny Steel as a companion spiritual beast, it gathered the 27 names together and used its enlarged claws to press on these names, and then responded to Yuhaoran. "Master, you can act now." After receiving the Life Calamity Spirit Mouse's response, Yuhaoran quickly took out the celestial ending sword and instructed the people around him. Kill. Qing Feng, who had long been unable to suppress the killing intent in his heart, roared and took the lead to charge towards Zhongli Mingjing, whose expression suddenly changed. Kill. Then, Yusiki, Lu Yuan, Palace, and a long-armed ape also roared and charged toward their opponents. What's going on? Where's the origin energy in my Dantian? Where's the soul energy that my divine soul condensed? Where's the power of laws that I worked so hard to integrate into my body? Just as Yusiki and the others charged towards the experts of the Zhongli family in the hall, the people whose fates were controlled by the Life Calamity Spirit Mouse were instantly stunned by the changes in their bodies. As they used their minds to search for the cause of the changes, they hurriedly questioned their companions. Even Zhongli Mingjing, whose cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th level of the martial god realm, was unable to find the reason why his divine power and soul energy had suddenly weakened. He was unable to regain control of the profound mysteries of the laws that he had comprehended, let alone his clansmen, whose cultivation and strength were far inferior to his. Therefore, as their cultivation and strength fell, the panic that emerged in their hearts caused the 26 Emperor Wu and the demigods of the Zhongli family to be like docile sheep that had encountered ferocious wolves when faced with the murderous Yusiki and the others. They were easily slaughtered. Both of them had reached the peak of the 9th level of the martial god realm, and both of them had mastered profound sword techniques and martial techniques. Zhongli Mingjing's strength was not much different from Qing Feng's. However, after losing the profound mysteries of the laws that he had comprehended, as well as nearly 70% of his divine power and soul energy, the difference between the two of them immediately became apparent. If Qing Feng had not been overly wary of the innate spiritual treasure Qingping sword, which was comparable to a supreme artifact, and was afraid that the Qingping sword would heavily injure his natal spiritual sword that was connected to his mind, he would have been defeated in the second exchange, and would have lost his life in the third exchange. Zhongli Mingjing glanced at Yuhaoran from the corner of his eyes. He discovered that Yuhaoran, who was tightly gripping the immortal trapping sword, was staring at him like a tiger watching its prey. Zhongli Mingjing knew that Yuhaoran had been waiting for an opportunity to deliver a fatal blow. Considering his current dangerous situation, it would be difficult for him to delay for 10 minutes. Zhongli Mingjing immediately used his divine sense to notify the dozen or so martial gods who were cultivating in the forbidden area of the palace to immediately come and help him. Yuhaoran, 16 martial gods ranging from the first to the beginning of the 9th level of the martial god realm, are rushing over. Through the method that Yuhaoran had left on the stone lion at the entrance of the palace, he had secretly grasped a portion of the Qiuyun Soulfall Formation's Thaling. Just as the martial gods in the forbidden area of the palace were about to make a move, he had already sensed it in advance and promptly notified them. After hearing the Thaling's reminder, Yuhaoran hurriedly notified the life-stealing spiritual mouse. He had it use its cultivation of the peak of the 9th level of the martial god realm to collect the auras of the 16 martial gods in advance, and then seize the time to control their fates through the Destiny Steel. Chapter 1868. Sunset Lake inside the palace. 3 seconds. It only took 3 seconds for the remaining 7 Emperor Wu experts in the hall to be slaughtered by Yu Haoran. Then he took out the celestial ending sword from the domain tower and threw it to Yusiki, instructing her with a solemn expression. "Sister, follow me to fight against stronger opponents." Nodding her head, Yusiki reached out and caught the end immortal sword that Haoran tossed over. She took the opportunity to unsheath the sword. With a crisp sound, the sword chi from the celestial eliminating sword soared into the sky and almost pierced through the roof of the palace that was reinforced by the formation. "Good sword," Yusiki said with admiration in her eyes as she gently stroked the hilt of the sword with her slender white fingers. "Sister, before I gather the last celestial eliminating sword, you can use the celestial eliminating sword." He could see Yusiki's fondness for the celestial eliminating sword, and he could feel that Yusiki could activate the full power of the celestial eliminating sword. Yu Haoran, who had always been generous to his family, could not ignore his sister's fondness. So he smiled and said. Then Yu Haoran turned to Lu Yuan and the others and said, "Senior Brother Lu, Brother Qi, Senior, the next opponents are all divine spirit experts in the martial god realm. It is not something you can interfere with. So, please retreat to Miss Shui Qin's side for the time being." Lu Yuan, Palace, and Long-Armed Ape did not insist on staying. After reminding Yu Haoran, they retreated to Zhongli Shui Qin's side. At this moment, 16 terrifying auras, which were like the power of heaven, rushed over at lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, they rushed into the hall. However, just as the 16 divine spirit experts in the martial god realm rushed into the hall, their terrifying auras suddenly paused, and then fell down quickly like a waterfall. What's going on? Just like the 26 revered martial artists and Emperor Wu who had just been killed, when faced with the sudden disappearance of a large amount of divine power and soul energy in their bodies, and the sudden loss of the mysteries of the laws, they all felt puzzled and hurriedly used their minds to check. Kill. However, Yu Haoran and Yusiki, who were already prepared, didn't give them any chance to check their own condition. They waved the celestial trapping sword and the celestial eliminating sword and directly attacked the 16 deities. When the 16 deities' auras paused, Zhongli Mingjing, who had experienced fate control twice, knew what they had just encountered. While Zhongli Mingjing was shocked by the strangeness and power of Yu Haoran's secret technique, a sense of fear welled up in his heart. At the cost of being heavily injured, he temporarily distanced himself from Qing Feng before turning his head to ask Zhongli Qingyang, who was in the corner of the hall. "Qingyang, how long will it take for Junfeng and Jinyue to return to the clan?" Zhongli Qingyang, who was as gloomy as water, didn't immediately answer Zhongli Mingjing's question. Instead, he clenched his fist tightly and hit his chest. After spitting out 9 mouthfuls of blood essence mixed with gold, which splashed onto the small gray tower, Zhongli Qingyang continued to form seals with his fingers. The lower the cultivation of a living being, the greater the influence of the fate calamity spirit, Mouse's manipulation of their fate. In just 5 seconds, 11 divine spirit experts below the peak of 3rd grade martial god realm were killed by Yu Haoran and Yusiki because their fates were controlled by the fate calamity spirit Mouse. So, when facing the remaining 5 godly spirit realm experts, Yu Haoran wasn't just able to deal with them with ease. He even had the energy to pay attention to Zhongli Mingjing, who was fighting Qing Feng, and Zhongli Qingyang, who was executing the bloodline soul fusion technique. Yu Haoran, who had quickly killed his opponents, reminded Zhongli Mingjing in a gloating tone when he saw the severely injured Zhongli Mingjing placing his hopes of survival on the 2 supreme ancestors, and Zhongli Qingyang, who had used 9 drops of his natal energy to use the bloodline soul fusion secret technique, which causes aura to drop to the level of 1st grade Emperor Wu. "Patriarch Qingyang, I forgot to tell you in advance. When I returned to your Zhongli clan, I set up a supreme grade sealing formation around the Sunset Lake," Qingyang said with a smile. This sealing formation can prevent experts below the level of half-tribulation supreme level from leaving or entering the Sunset Lake. At the same time, it can block all secret techniques from requesting help, including the bloodline soul fusion secret technique you're using. Hearing Yu Haoran's gloating reminder, the panicked Zhongli Mingjing had his arm chopped off by Qing Feng. Zhongli Qingyang, who was furious, spat out a mouthful of blood. Both of them almost fainted. Yu Haoran, Qingping's sword, fouling in his sea of consciousness, hurriedly reminded him when he saw Qing Feng chopping off Zhongli Mingjing's left arm that was holding the Qingping sword. After hearing Fowling's reminder, Yu Haoran used all his strength to repel a peak 7th grade martial god. He immediately used the power of laws of the two flashing elements to put away the Qingping sword in the blink of an eye and return to the battlefield. Afterwards, he worked with Yu Siki to kill the remaining 2 peak 7th grade martial gods. After receiving the Qingping sword that Yu Haoran had sent into his sea of consciousness, Fowling immediately began to form hand seals with his fingers. He planned to use the secret technique and the Qingping sword to track down Prime Tong Tian. He wanted to see if Prime Tong Tian was hiding in the endless void or if he had already disappeared in the river of history. This was the true reason why Fowling desired the Qingping sword so much. Yu Haoran sighed gently when he saw Zhongli Mingjing's pale face and deathly stillness in his eyes. He then glanced at Zhongli Qingyang, who was unwilling to admit defeat and continued to use the bloodline soul fusion secret technique. He turned around and walked up to Zhongli Shuiqin. Miss Shuiqin, what should we do next? Including Zhongli Xuan Na and Zhongli Ziyuan, who had been killed at the beginning, the 19 Spirit of God experts that represented the Zhongli clan's heritage had basically all died. Under the circumstances where the half-tribulation martial saints and martial saints were unable to return to the profound sky continent in a short period of time, the Zhongli clan that had suffered heavy losses was no longer as powerful as some regular clans. If he continued to kill Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing and allowed the news to spread, some of the peak organizations that were eyeing the Zhongli clan's heritage probably would not let go of this rare opportunity so easily. Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing could be said to be the foundation of the Zhongli clan's continued existence. However, if they did not kill Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing, then the deep hatred between them would probably make it even more impossible for them to agree to the marriage between Wu Jingjun and Zhongli Shuiqin. As a result, Yu Haoran decided to give Zhongli Shuiqin the choice of whether Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing lived or died. Chapter 1869. Sunset Lake within the palace. Zhongli Qingyang was her father, while Zhongli Mingjing was the ancestor of her direct bloodline. In terms of blood ties, Zhongli Shuiqin obviously did not wish for anything to happen to them. Furthermore, with the current situation of the Zhongli clan, as well as the complexity of the situation, nothing could happen to them. Otherwise, the Zhongli clan would probably face the threat of extinction. However, the second marriage had left her heartbroken. At the same time, she hated Zhongli Qingyang, who did not treat her like a daughter at all. Not to mention that Yu Haoran had caused irreparable harm and loss to the Zhongli clan, so Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing would absolutely not give up on the thought of taking revenge. They would definitely contact their half-tribulation exalted realm and supreme exalted realm ancestors who were far away in the boundless space. At that time, it might bring fatal danger to Yu Haoran. As a result, Zhongli Shuiqin, who did not know how to choose between kinship, love, and friendship, could only lower her head silently in the end. Sigh. Yu Haoran could not help but sigh when he saw that Zhongli Shuiqin was unable to make a final decision. He decided not to continue making things difficult for her. Afterwards, he turned around and looked at Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing, who had fallen to the ground, and said indifferently, "Patriarch Qingyang, Senior Mingjing, I'll let you live for now on account of Miss Shuiqin." Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing knew that they would die for sure after losing the hope of summoning a Supreme's ancestor. They had completely given up on resisting and begging for mercy. They closed their eyes and waited for death to descend upon them. As a result, The two of them suddenly opened their eyes when they heard Yu Haoran's forgiveness. Disbelief filled their eyes. "Don't worry," Yu Haoran promised with a shrug when he saw the disbelief on Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing's faces. On the other hand, those who are familiar with me, Yu Haoran, know that I'm a man of my word. Since I've agreed to let you live, I won't go back on my word. Afterwards, he walked to the wide chair on the left of the hall and sat down. He instructed Palace, "Brother Qi, please tidy up the hall." He knew that Yu Haoran was able to use a special formation to extract the life essence contained in the corpses and use it to improve his cultivation base and strength. Therefore, after hearing Yu Haoran's instructions, a look of surprise flashed in the Scarlet Loth's eyes. It immediately put all the corpses in the hall into the independent space it had opened up. "Patriarch Qingyang, Senior Ming Jing, I know that your hearts are definitely filled with intense hatred right now, and you intend to immediately summon an Exalt Stage ancestor to take revenge after I leave the Dawnfall Peak." After Palace collected all the corpses in the hall, Yu Haoran looked at Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing, who were standing side by side, and calmly pointed out their thoughts. "He'll guide you. I, Zhongli Mingjing, swear on my heart's demon that I don't have any hatred for you in my heart. After this, I will definitely not take the initiative to contact the few venerable realm ancestors. If I violate the oath, I will definitely suffer the backlash of my heart's demon and the lightning punishment of the heavenly Tao." Now that he finally had a chance to live, how could the cowardly Zhongli Mingjing give Yu Haoran the chance to change his mind and attack? Thus, he hurriedly used his remaining right hand to slap his chest as a guarantee. Yu Haoran nodded in satisfaction at Zhongli Mingjing's tactful oath. Then, he looked at Zhongli Qingyang, who had a gloomy expression, and waited for him to express his stance. Although Yu Haoran's gaze was as calm as water, Zhongli Qingyang knew very well that as long as his following answer didn't satisfy Yu Haoran would have a reason to deal with him. Hence, despite his extreme reluctance, Zhongli Qingyang finally swore on his heart's demon and guaranteed that he wouldn't take revenge after this. After nodding in satisfaction, Yu Haoran instructed Zhongli Qingyang, "Patriarch Qingyang, you should know the reason why I, Yu Haoran, took the initiative to visit you this time. Now, please invite the important figures of the family to come and witness the marriage contract between my junior brother and Miss Shuai-Qin." All right. Although agreeing to Yu Haoran's request for marriage would definitely offend the Destiny's Child, Ji Xing, afterwards, the Zhongli family would probably be completely destroyed if he continued to oppose it. Therefore, Zhongli Qingyang, who didn't continue to insist on his idea, immediately used his divine sense to inform the few remaining elders and Zhongli Shuai-Qin's mother. "Yu Shixiang, thank you." Zhongli Shuai-Qin was deeply moved when she saw that Yu Haoran had not only risked his life to forgive her father and ancestor, but also didn't forget about the marriage contract between her and Jingjun. She hurriedly walked in front of him and knelt down to thank him. After lifting Zhongli Shuai-Qin up with a wave of his sleeve, Yu Haoran motioned for Thaling to send Wu Zhengjun out of Victor's space. Because some monstrous geniuses with extraordinary talent were able to open up an independent space before their cultivation reached the martial god realm, he wasn't worried about exposing the existence of Victor and Thaling. "Xiaojun, what's wrong?" After seeing the unconscious Wu Zhengjun being carefully placed on a wide chair by Yu Haoran, Zhongli Shuai-Qin, whose tears immediately gushed out, immediately rushed in front of him. She then held his hands tightly and asked while sobbing. Although the use of the top healing pills could completely heal Wu Zhengjuan's mental injuries, it was far less beneficial than natural recovery, so Yu Haoran didn't stop Zhongli Shuai-Qin's actions. When he saw the pale as paper and the unconscious Wu Zhengjun, Zhongli Qingyang glanced at Yu Haoran nervously. He didn't find the slightest trace of anger on Yu Haoran's face, so he secretly sighed in relief. After all, he, Zhongli Qingyang, was the true mastermind behind the injuries Wu Zhengjun was suffering right now. Perhaps because of Zhongli Shuai-Qin's crying calling, Wu Zhengjuan's depressed breathing slowly stabilized, and his tightly closed eyes gradually showed signs of opening. Although he wanted to take advantage of Wu Zhengjuan's gradual awakening to use his divine sense to investigate the reason for the disappearance of the bloodthirsty physique, when a beautiful middle-aged woman appeared at the entrance of the hall and 7 old men in brocade closed behind her, he had no choice but to deal with the upcoming engagement first. Therefore, he could only ask Thaling and his knowledge see for the time being. Unfortunately, Thaling, who was using a secret method to track down the whereabouts of Prime Tongtian, didn't have much energy to pay attention to Wu Jingjun, let alone the reason for the disappearance of the bloodthirsty physique. Therefore, he didn't prepare for the unforeseen event in advance. Chapter 1870. Sunset Lake, within the palace. Sit down. After hearing Yu Haoran's signal, Zhongli Mingjing turned his head and instructed Zhongli Qingyang and the others. After that, he walked straight to the first wide chair on the right side of the hall and took the initiative to sit down. Zhongli Qingyang raised his head and glanced at the ice dragon throne. A trace of anger and helplessness flashed through his eyes before he took the initiative to sit below Zhongli Mingjing. Afterwards, apart from the beautiful middle-aged woman who stood behind Zhongli Qingyang, the remaining 7 finely dressed old men sat according to their status in the clan. After everyone in the hall sat down, Yu Haoran revealed a gentle smile and said, "Clan leader Qingyang, Senior Mingjing, according to the customs of our Tianxian continent, as the man who has come to propose marriage, we should prepare a generous gift to show our sincerity. He'll guide you. With your current status and identity, the fact that you have personally come to propose marriage is already the most precious gift you have given to our Zhongli clan. I dare not ask for any more excessive requests." Although Yu Haoran's tone and attitude were clearly very gentle, Zhongli Mingjing, who had been on edge the entire time, did not dare to be arrogant at all. He hurriedly stood up and responded humbly. In response, Yu Haoran only shook his head with a smile. Afterwards, he took out 3 special jade boxes, 3 pill bottles, and 3 jade slips from his storage ring and placed them on the table beside him. Afterwards, he picked up one of the special jade boxes and slowly opened it. A set of silver armor that gave off a mysterious aura appeared before everyone's eyes. This is a mid-tier God Realm defensive armor. It contains 100 Emperor rank and God rank defensive formations. It can block the full force attack of a peak 9th grade martial god without any damage. Yu Haoran used Yuan Qi to wrap the special jade box with a defensive armor magic tool in front of Zhongli Mingjing as he explained in detail. At the same time, it contains 72 spirit gathering formations that can gather star energy. It can continuously evolve through absorbing star energy and has the hope of becoming a sovereign rank defensive magic tool in the end. Ever since the experts of the Tools Dao, Tool Emperor, and Tool God Realm disappeared, the defensive magic tools of the Venerable Realm became extremely precious, and the defensive magic tools of the Emperor Realm were even rarer. Not only were Divine Realm defensive artifacts extremely rare, but they were also close to extinction. The value of a Divine Realm middle-grade defensive armor was probably not inferior to that of a Divine Realm peak-grade offensive weapon. Not to mention that this was a defensive armor that could continue to be upgraded. Therefore, Zhongli Mingjing hurriedly stood up and thanked Zhongli Qingyang after receiving the armor. His expression was solemn as he instructed Zhongli Qingyang. "Keep it in the secret vault." "Yes, sir." After nodding in response, Zhongli Qingyang took the special jade box and looked at Yu Haoran with a complicated expression. Ignoring Zhongli Qingyang's complicated gaze, Yu Haoran extended his hand to pick up the second special jade box, opened it, and introduced it. The innate spiritual treasure, Flying Smoke Sword. It's comparable to a God Realm upper-grade sword. It has extreme attack speed and the ability to confuse opponents. Although there were more than 10 innate spiritual treasures in the family vault and secret vault, most of them were only auxiliary magic tools. There were not many innate spiritual treasures that were purely offensive and defensive. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to be the only one among the 19 martial gods to possess the offensive innate spiritual treasure, Qingping Sword. Moreover, The top innate spiritual treasure, Qingping's sword, had already been taken away by Yu Haoran. It was impossible for him to get it back. Therefore, the flying smoke sword was one of the important methods he would use to protect the Zhongli family. Therefore, after receiving the jade box containing the flying smoke sword, Zhongli Mingjing thanked Yu Haoran and placed the jade box on the tea table beside him. His attitude of taking possession of the flying smoke sword could not be any more obvious. In this regard, Zhongli Qingyang, who also desired the innate spiritual treasure flying smoke eye, could not help but sigh secretly. He looked at Yu Haoran expectantly and looked at the last special jade box on the tea table. However, to Zhongli Qingyang's slight disappointment, Yu Haoran reached out and picked up the third gift. It was a jade slip and not the jade box he was looking forward to. The 1,000-mile string manipulation, which was created by Supreme Zhantai in the Middle Ages. Elixir Godyu, are you sure it's the secret technique of the 1,000-mile string manipulation? Zhongli Mingjing, who suddenly stood up, asked in disbelief. Supreme Zhantai was an extraordinary woman in the Middle Ages with amazing talent and beauty. Not only did she create the record of being the fastest to reach the Emperor Wu, martial god, and Supreme Zhantai, but her memory and comprehension were extraordinary. She also created 3 kinds of secret techniques that could be said to be heaven-defying. Unfortunately, due to the betrayal of her feelings, a fatal flaw appeared in her state of mind. This led to the backlash of her inner demons when she tried to reach the peak of the 9th grade Supreme Zhantai realm. In the end, her divine soul was destroyed, and the 3 secret techniques that she created disappeared in the long river of history. Otherwise, with her talent and comprehension, she definitely had the strength to shake the Xingtian Supreme Zhantai realm, the strongest man in the Middle Ages. And the secret technique of the 1,000-mile string manipulation was one of the 3 heaven-defying secret techniques. The 1,000-mile string manipulation was an auxiliary secret technique. It could ignore any obstacles, including space distance, space barriers, secret realm barriers, ceiling formations, and so on, and finally achieve the effect of simultaneous voice transmission and communication. If the Zhongli clan could obtain the secret technique of the 1,000-mile string manipulation, they would be able to communicate with the Supreme Zhantai realm ancestors in the endless void at any time and place. This would be an unimaginable help for the Zhongli clan to deal with the complicated situation that would follow. Anyway, the jade slip is right in front of you. If Senior Mingjing doesn't believe me, you can use your divine sense to check it now. Yu Haoran smiled and gestured, looking at the jade slip floating in front of him. Zhongli Mingjing's eyes showed a hint of struggle. This was because, according to the records of the clan, the secret technique of the 1,000-mile string manipulation was very easy to cultivate. As long as one had the talent and comprehension of a demon-level genius, one could completely grasp the essence of the secret technique in 3 to 5 minutes. Although he was limited by the heart demon Oath and couldn't contact the ancestors through the secret technique of the 1,000-mile string manipulation, he could let the descendants in the clan who had the talent to tell the ancestors in detail about the humiliation and calamity that the clan had encountered. As long as he tried his best to stall for time in the process of discussing the marriage contract, Ancestor Zhenfeng and Ancestor Zhenyue, who were far away on the comet, would be able to return to the clan before Yu Haoran left the Sunset Lake. Chapter 1871. Sunset Lake within the palace. Zhongli Mingjing was filled with pride as excitement gradually replaced his conflicted expression. He directly extended his hand and grabbed the jade slip that hovered before him, intending to read the secret technique of the 1,000-ly thread. However, when he caught sight of Yu Haoran's mocking smile from the corner of his eye, a chill immediately surged through his heart. Yu Haoran clearly knew that the secret technique of the 1,000-ly thread that Sovereign Zhantai had created could break through the 9 Palaces' 9 Bins mystic formation that he had personally set up and contact the sovereign ancestors in the endless void. However, he had still taken it out without any hesitation. If he said that he did not have any defensive measures, no one would believe him even if he told the heavens. Moreover, Zhongli Mingjing suspected that this was Yu Haoran's scheme to test him. He was testing whether he had truly let go of his hatred and whether he would go back on his vow. When he thought up to there, Zhongli Mingjing immediately withdrew his intent from reading the jade slip. Afterwards, he put on a solemn expression and handed the jade slip to Zhongli Qingyang. File it away in the secret vault. It was just as Zhongli Mingjing had guessed and suspected. How could Yu Haoran not have any defensive measures when he had given away the secret technique of the thousandly thread that could pose a threat to him? Firstly, he had modified the jade slip with the secret technique of the thousandly thread into a single-use jade slip. As long as Zhongli Mingjing read the secret technique in the jade slip on the spot, the jade slip would immediately self-destruct. Zhongli Mingjing would not have the opportunity to pass it on to another clansman in a short period of time. Secondly, the secret technique of the thousandly thread that he had given to the Zhongli clan had been researched by him in Thaling and had undergone some minor modifications. As long as a clansman of the Zhongli clan used the secret technique to contact the sovereign ancestors in the endless void, he could immediately steal the contents of the communication or stop the process of communication at any time. In the end, he had indeed used the secret technique of the thousandly thread to test the depths of Zhongli Mingjing's hatred for him. He would use this to decide his attitude after the engagement was concluded. Fortunately, Zhongli Mingjing had pulled back from the precipice in time and made a wise choice, causing Yu Haoran to nod with satisfaction. After that, he stretched out his hand to pick up the second jade slip on the table, and then he utilized his origin energy to wrap it up before delivering it to Zhongli Mingjing. The soul-breaking sword technique is a peak divine rank sword technique. It was created by heavenly sword Xiao Yuhuan, who obtained the sword Dao's destiny during the Middle Ages. It can raise one's strength by 1 to 2 small realms. In terms of practicality, the soul-severing sword technique was far more valuable than the thousandly pulling technique. However, the Zhongli family did not lack top-tier sword techniques. On the contrary, they needed the supplementary thousandly pulling technique more. As a result, Zhongli Mingjing only symbolically thanked Yu Haoran for the soul-severing sword technique before getting Zhongli Qingyang to file it away in the treasury instead of the secret vault. The Nine Tunes Yellow River God Burying Formation, a peak divine level formation created by the illusionary primeval spiritual being, the number 1 formation master in the Middle Ages. It can trap and kill a divine spirit realm expert at the peak 9th grade martial god realm. Yu Haoran continued to introduce the third jade slip to Zhongli Mingjing using his Yuan power. Just like how he treated the soul-severing sword technique, Zhongli Mingjing instructed Zhongli Qingyang to file it away in the treasury instead of the secret vault. Whether it was the soul-severing sword technique or the 9 Bends Yellow River God-bearing formation, they were both top-tier treasures that countless organizations in the profound Sky Continent would madly fight over. However, Zhongli Mingjing's overly calm reaction and ordinary handling of the matter made Yu Haoran immediately realize that the Zhongli family's collection of top-tier martial techniques and formations had probably far exceeded his imagination. This made him envious and jealous. At the same time, the thought of peeking into the Zhongli family's secret vault flashed through his mind. However, when he thought of the marriage between Wu Zhenghua and Zhongli Shuiqin, he could only helplessly give up on the thought in the end. He then extended his hand and picked up a pill bottle. 3-tier, 9 Nirvana pills. They can allow experts at Emperor Wu's level to undergo a complete transformation and increase their potential and hope of becoming a martial god. Yu Haoran adjusted his emotions after sending the pill bottle to Zhongli Mingjing using his origin energy. He continued to introduce the pills with a gentle smile on his face. To Zhongli Mingjing, who was already a peak 9th level martial god, the tier 9 Nirvana pills were useless. However, to Zhongli Qingyang and the 7 old men in luxurious robes who were at Emperor Wu's level, the Nirvana pills were the hope of improving their cultivation and strength. Therefore, when Zhongli Qingyang and the others saw the pill bottle that Zhongli Mingjing accepted, their eyes immediately filled with desire. Zhongli Mingjing pondered for a moment before instructing when he sensed the desire in Zhongli Qingyang and the other's eyes. Put them in the treasury. Thank you, Ancestor Mingjing. Zhongli Qingyang hurriedly stood up and expressed his gratitude when he heard Zhongli Mingjing's instructions. According to the rules of the Zhongli clan, only the ancestors at the martial god level had the right to decide and distribute the treasures in the treasury. As the patriarch of the Zhongli clan, although he could not interfere with the treasures in the treasury, he had full authority to decide the final ownership of all the treasures in the treasury. Zhongli Mingjing had put the 3 second-tier, 9th-grade nirvana pills into the treasury, which was equivalent to giving him the right to dispose of the nirvana pills. How could Zhongli Qingyang, who had always wanted to break through to the martial god realm, not feel grateful? Qingyang, the Tier 9 Nirvana pills are a precious gift from Pill God Yu. If you want to express your gratitude, you should thank Pill God Yu first. Zhongli Mingjing became even more fearful of Yu Haoran after experiencing the 1,000-mile string manipulation, so he became even more cautious in his actions. Therefore, when Zhongli Qingyang thanked Yu Haoran for the Tier 9 Nirvana pills, Zhongli Mingjing hurriedly gave him a reminder. He was afraid that he would upset Yu Haoran. Zhongli Qingyang had always resisted and resented the fact that he had temporarily given up his hatred and had no choice but to agree to the marriage between Wu Zhengjun and Zhongli Shuiqin. At this moment, the fact that he could face Yu Haoran calmly was already his bottom line for the time being. It was impossible for him to thank Yu Haoran in front of everyone. Therefore, when Zhongli Mingjing gave him a reminder, Zhongli Qingming sneered and sat down on the wide chair again. He then poured out the nirvana pills and examined them carefully. He had no intention of thanking Lin Fan at all. Yu Haoran did not care about this at all. He took out the second pill bottle and wrapped it with Yuan Qi before sending it to Zhongli Mingjing. Then, he introduced it to Zhongli Mingjing. This is a Tier 1 soul accumulation pill. It can help a half-tribulation sovereign to reconstruct a physical body and realize the hope of a second rebirth. Chapter 1872. Sunset Lake in the Palace. Whether it was the divine soul that had left the space of the sea of consciousness or the remnant left in the world, they could use the Stage 1 soul accumulation pill to reconstruct their physical body and obtain a new life. In the shortest time, they could return to the peak state before they died. Therefore, the soul accumulation pill was also called the immortal pill. It was the elixir that all the top experts dreamed of. However, the refining process of the soul accumulation pill was too difficult. The alchemy god realm was only the basic condition for refining the soul accumulation pill. The understanding of the origin of alchemy and the profound mysteries of the law, as well as the proficiency of the alchemy technique, was the key to success. Sometimes, it even required a certain amount of luck. Therefore, since the end of the Middle Ages, the cultivation of alchemy gradually fell behind, and the soul accumulation pill became a legendary elixir. Even the 4 great guardian families, which had the longest inheritance, did not have a Stage 1 soul accumulation pill. Holding the bottle of Stage 1 soul accumulation pill tightly, Zhongli Mingjing looked up at Yu Haoran, who had a faint smile on his face, with a trace of regret in his eyes. If he knew that Yu Haoran, who had advanced to the pill god realm, was able to refine a rank 1 soul accumulating pill, then even if he had to take the risk of offending the Destiny's Child, Ji Xing, it wouldn't matter if he agreed to the marriage between Wu Zhengjun and Zhongli Shuiqin. Because as long as he left a remnant soul with the sovereign realm ancestor, even if he died in the anger of the heaven's will and in the immeasurable calamity, he would still be able to refine the soul accumulation pill. Afterwards, he would be able to rely on the undying God pill and a wisp of his soul to be reborn. Furthermore, he would regain his peak 9th grade martial god cultivation in the shortest time possible. At this moment, Zhongli Mingjing's hatred for Yu Haoran dissipated a lot. At this moment, Zhongli Mingjing began to think about how to get more immortal pills. Ancestor Mingjing, what's wrong with you? Zhongli Qingyang, who did not know much about the effects of the soul accumulation pill, could not help but ask when he saw Zhongli Mingjing holding the bottle in silence for a long time, and his mood fluctuated greatly. Zhongli Qingyang's question woke Zhongli Mingjing up from his shock. Then, he explained the powerful effects of the immortal pill in detail while putting the bottle of Stage 1 soul accumulation pill into an independent space. Sizzle. Zhongli Qingyang and the others gasped when they heard about the heaven-defying effects of the first-grade, first-tier soul accumulation pill. They looked at Zhongli Mingjing with intense longing and dissatisfaction because they also wanted the undying God pill that could save their lives. Of course, longing was longing and dissatisfaction was dissatisfaction. Zhongli Qingyang and the others were very clearly aware that it was utterly impossible for Zhongli Mingjing to give up a rank 1 soul accumulation pill. Therefore, their eyes were filled with longing and anticipation as they looked towards Yuhaoran, towards the last remaining pill bottle, hoping that the pill bottle still contained the undying God pill. Rank 1 Immortal Ascension Pill. It can help Emperor Wu, who is at the peak of rank 9 and a demigod. It has a 50% chance of advancing to the martial god realm. Although Yuhaoran had not expected that the soul accumulation pill, which could reconstruct one's body, would be so attractive to Zhongli Mingjing and the others, it was a good thing for him. If Zhongli Qingyang and the others wanted to obtain the rank 1 soul accumulation pill, they could not continue to offend him. They also did not dare to use the bloodline fusion and the 1,000-mile thread secret method to summon the supreme ancestors in the endless void in a short time. Thinking of this, Yuhaoran secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he was full of anticipation for the third pill that he would give away. He was full of confidence in the means to seal the marriage between Wu Jingjun and Zhongli Shuiqin. Although Zhongli Mingjing, who was at the peak of rank 9, did not need the Immortal Ascension Pill, the value of a rank 1 Immortal Ascension Pill was far greater than that of a rank 1 Immortal Ascension Pill for Zhongli Qingyang, whose cultivation was at the peak of Emperor Wu's rank 9 and who had been bitterly pursuing a breakthrough to the martial god realm. Therefore, as soon as Zhongli Mingjing accepted the pill bottle, Zhongli Qingyang immediately requested, "Ancestor Mingjing, there's no need to keep the Immortal Ascension Pill. Just give it to me." "No." Just as Zhongli Mingjing was about to nod in agreement, an old man in embroidered robes who sat below Zhongli Qingyang suddenly objected. "Why?" Zhongli Qingyang asked in displeasure. "Patriarch, it's not like the clan's treasury doesn't have any top pills that can assist in breaking through to the martial god realm. As the one who has the authority to distribute the treasures, you can definitely use those top pills to break through." The old man in embroidered robes replied firmly, ignoring Zhongli Qingyang's request. "As for elders like us with mediocre talent and potential, if we don't have the assistance of a divine pill like the Immortal Ascension Pill, we'll probably never be able to see through the mysteries of life and death and reach the martial god realm. Therefore, this Immortal Ascension Pill can only belong to the elders of the inner clan." Elder Hailong, the patriarchs of the 4 protector clans and the 5 hidden clans, as well as the sect masters of the 7 peak sects, have yet to break through to the martial god realm. Although Zhongli Qingyang was rather displeased by the old man's firm reply, he did not want to expose the discord between the clans before Yuhaoran and the others. As a result, he patiently tried to persuade the patriarch. "If I can use the Immortal Ascension Pill to reach the martial god realm first, it'll bring unimaginable benefits to the clan's reputation and might. Patriarch, regardless of whether it's Emperor Wu's cultivation or the demigod realm, our final lifespan won't exceed 10,000 years. Us old fellows are all afraid that we won't be able to break through to the martial god realm when we reach the end of our lifespan." Although Zhongli Qingyang's reasoning was reasonable, any reasonable explanation would become unreasonable when faced with the temptation of immortality. As a result, Zhongli Hailong immediately put on a pitiful expression and begged bitterly. Therefore, Hailong hopes that the patriarch can give the Immortal Ascension Pill to us on account of our lifelong contributions to the clan. The other 5 elders immediately cooperated with Zhongli Hailong's pleas. You, Zhongli Qingyang, was instantly angered to the point that he was speechless when faced with the pleading of the remaining 7 inter-clan elders, who took advantage of their seniority. Seeing that the immortal ascension pill was about to reach its climax, Yu Haoran reached out and picked up the last special jade box on the tea table. He opened it and introduced it with a smile. Chapter 1873. Sunset Lake within the palace. Yu Haoran's introduction of the treasure stored in the last special jade box stunned the furious Zhongli Qingyang. Afterwards, he directly tossed the bottle with the immortal ascension pill to Zhongli Hailong. Afterwards, he stared at the ginseng fruit in the jade box with intense desire and greed. Patriarch, us elders have already thought it through. Your ascension to the martial god realm with the help of the immortal ascension pill will determine the survival of our Zhongli clan. As such, we've decided to leave the immortal ascension pill to you and reluctantly keep the ginseng fruit. Elder Hailong took the bottle and communicated with the other 6 elders through his eyes. Afterwards, he adopted a righteous stance and directly decided on the final distribution of the immortal ascension pill and the ginseng fruit. Zhongli Hailong, don't force my hand. Zhongli Qingyang suddenly turned around and glared at Zhongli Hailong. His eyes were filled with intense, killing intent as he threatened through gritted teeth. Let's do it. Do you think we're afraid of you? Zhongli Hailong suddenly stood up and retorted fearlessly. Zhongli Qingyang, Zhongli Hailong, shut your mouths. Although Zhongli Qingyang and the others knew that the sudden change in the clan had caused a huge flaw in their mental state, causing them to be unable to resist the temptation of the immortal ascension pill and the ginseng fruit, they still exposed the internal conflict and discord in front of their mortal enemy, Yu Haoran and the others. Not only would that be extremely humiliating, but it would also make Yu Haoran and the others look down on them. It would be detrimental to the clan's future development. As such, Zhongli Mingjing ordered with an ashen face after sternly reprimanding them. The ginseng fruit goes to the patriarch, and the immortal ascension pill goes to Elder Hailong. Although Zhongli Hailong was unwilling to accept this and wanted to ask why, when he saw the coldness that occasionally flashed through Zhongli Mingjing's eyes, Zhongli Hailong, who knew how ruthless Zhongli Mingjing was, had no choice but to accept Zhongli Mingjing's overbearing distribution plan. Seeing that the other party had already discussed the final distribution result, Yu Haoran smiled as he used his essence energy to wrap the jade box in front of Zhongli Mingjing. When Zhongli Mingjing received the jade box containing the ginseng fruit and passed it to Zhongli Qingyang, Yu Haoran directly stood up and walked to the center of the hall. Then, his 10 fingers quickly formed a seal. When the 9 marks were condensed, they quickly merged into a contract that was emitting purple light. On the contract were clearly written the dates of the engagement and marriage between Wu Jingjun and Zhongli Shuiqin, the 4 guardian families, the 4 hermit families excluding the Zhongli family, the 7 top sects, the 12 inherited families from the Middle Ages, and the 9 great gifts that the groom would give during the engagement. Pil God Yu, this is not appropriate. Zhongli Mingjing reminded Yu Haoran with a frown when he saw the contract that Yu Haoran had condensed using a secret technique and the contents of the contract. Senior Mingjing, clan leader Qin Yang, as the woman's father and direct bloodline elder, you can raise different opinions, and I will try my best to agree. Zhongli Mingjing's dissatisfied reaction was not out of Yu Haoran's expectations. He used his mind to control the contract to float in front of Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang before he suggested with a smile. Pil God Yu, the dates of the engagement and marriage should be decided by the woman's side. Before Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang could say anything in response to Yu Haoran's suggestion, the beautiful middle-aged woman standing behind Zhongli Qingyang took the initiative to object. No problem. Yu Haoran didn't mind at all and nodded in agreement. However, we need to give the specific dates of the engagement and marriage when we leave the Zhongli family, because I need to prepare some of the wedding ceremonies in advance. Yu Haoran's slightly overbearing request made the beautiful middle-aged woman frown uncontrollably. However, When she thought about how even the most powerful person in the family, Patriarch Ming Jing, couldn't do anything to him, she finally lowered her head in silence. "He'll guide you. When you leave the Zhongli family, we can give the specific dates of the engagement and marriage, but there's no need to sign a contract that will be restricted." Zhongli Mingjing was afraid that the beautiful, middle-aged woman's objection would provoke Yu Haoran's displeasure. After quickly agreeing to the request of the engagement and marriage date, she took the opportunity to raise her own opinion. "Senior Mingjing, to me, Yu Haoran, Zhenjun is not only a fellow disciple of the same sect, but also a close brother." Yu Haoran explained rather proudly in response to Zhongli Mingjing's different opinion. "Therefore, regarding his life event, not only do I want it to be grand, I also want to invite all the top forces and experts in the Tianxian continent to attend the wedding." Using the power of the natural order to condense a contract, not only can it cross the barriers of time and space to reach the designated location in an instant, but it can also show the sincerity of both of us inviting guests so that we won't be picked on afterwards. Yu Haoran's arrogant reply caused Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang's faces to instantly darken. This was because they knew very well that apart from the reason, just now, Yu Haoran wanted to use such a sinister and cunning method to completely humiliate the Destiny's Child, Ji Xing, and officially cut off all ties with the Zhongli family. Looking at each other, Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang both saw the depression and helplessness in each other's eyes. When they thought of Yu Haoran's methods and the predicament their family was facing, in the end, the two of them didn't raise any objections to the contract. "Since the two seniors don't have any objections, then please sign the contract with your own blood, Patriarch Qingyang." Yu Haoran walked in front of Zhongli Qingyang and reminded him with a smile. Although Yu Haoran's attitude seemed very gentle, Zhongli Qingyang could clearly feel the unquestionable attitude in his tone. Moreover, if he wanted to get the life-saving first-stage soul-accumulating elixir and the top elixir to help him improve the martial god realm, he had to find a way to maintain the relationship between them and even try his best to please the other party. Therefore, Zhongli Qingyang, who had figured all this out, was not only willing to sign the contract with his own blood, but also wrote down the date of engagement and marriage on the contract. The date of engagement was the moment the contract was signed. The date of marriage was 3 months later, on the day of Jingzhe. Zhongli Qingyang's straightforward and generous action made Yu Haoran feel completely relieved. At the same time, a happy smile finally appeared on his face. Then, he used his mind to control the contract and came to Wu Jingjun, who had already woken up but was not allowed to speak or intervene. "Zhengjun, sign a contract with your own blood, and your marriage with Miss Shui Qin will officially take effect." Senior brother. Chapter 1874. Sunset Lake within the palace. He had used the Supreme Level 9 Palace's 9 Bends Mystic Formation to seal the entire Sunset Lake before using a special secret technique to slaughter several hundred martial exalts, Emperor Wu, demigods, and martial gods, forcing Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang to lower their heads and admit defeat. He had taken out the ginseng fruit, nirvana pill, soul accumulating pill, immortal ascension pill, mid-god realm armor, natural spirit treasure flying smoke sword, thousandly string pull, soul severing sword, and the 9 Bends Yellow River God burying formation. Everyone in the Zhongli clan became greedy and fought over it. In the end, they all agreed to his marriage with Zhongli Shuiqin willingly. For the sake of his lifelong happiness, Yu Haoran had sacrificed everything. This made Wu Zhengjun feel grateful, but at the same time, endless regret emerged in his heart. He regretted his selfishness and hated his weakness. "Zhengjun, cut the crap. Hurry up and form a contract with your blood so that the power of laws can witness your union with Miss Shuiqin." Yu Haoran urged with a smile, directly waving his hand to interrupt Wu Zhengjun's words of gratitude and apology. Yes, he knew that it was not easy for him to become a couple with Zhongli Shuiqin. He understood the importance of a contract that bound them together, and he understood his senior brother's intentions even more. As a result, Wu Zhengjun did not feel too much regret or self-blame. He nodded in response before directly cutting his finger and dripping a droplet of blood onto the contract. As Wu Zhengjun's blood rapidly fused with the contract immediately erupted with dazzling violet light, causing everyone in the hall to squint their eyes. With the dense, dazzling violet light, Wu Zhengjun and Zhongli Shuiqin's names gradually left the contract and quickly rose into the air. Very soon, they passed through the ceiling of the palace and flew into the sky. Without any hesitation, Yu Haoran immediately used his mind to control the contract to rush out of the hall. Afterwards, he stood in the courtyard and watched the two names rise into the air. Yu Shixiang, what's going on? According to the normal procedure, the contract condensed from the power of laws would automatically split into two when the two parties used their blood to form it. Afterwards, it would fuse into the man and woman's bodies as a witness and method to bind them. Once the candles were extinguished in the bridal chamber, the contract would completely vanish because of their union. However, the changes to the contract had clearly differed from the normal procedure, so Zhongli Shuiqin, who had also charged out of the hall, asked in confusion. Zhongli Shuiqin's question was also a question that puzzled everyone present. They all looked at Yu Haoran. The dragon and phoenix are auspicious, witnessed by the heavens and earth. They will accompany each other for life and will never change until death. Yu Haoran retracted his gaze from the names in the air and looked at Wu Zhengjun and Zhongli Shuiqin, who had puzzled expressions. He understood everything from the inheritance memories of the Destiny Stone Tablet and sighed with gratification and envy. Zhengjun, Miss Shuiqin, even if your union encounters all kinds of obstacles, even if I don't help you, you will still succeed in the end. Furthermore, you will hold hands and accompany each other forever. Yu Shixiang, why is that? Zhongli Shuiqin's eyes were filled with surprise as she hurriedly asked. Because it was fate that arranged for you to meet and know each other. It was the heavens that arranged for you to fall in love and stay together. It was the power of laws that arranged for you to stay together forever. As soon as Yu Haoran finished speaking, the two names, which had risen to a height of 1,314 meters, suddenly exploded into countless purple fragments. As if attracted by some kind of force, the flying purple fragments quickly gathered together and finally condensed into a giant purple ball with a diameter of nearly 10,000 meters. Roar! Screech! After only 3 seconds, a pure and loud dragon roar and a pure and crisp phoenix cry suddenly came from the giant purple ball. Boom! Accompanied by the deafening roar of the dragon and phoenix, the giant purple ball that had just formed suddenly exploded. Then, a purple divine dragon with a body length of 9,999 meters and a purple divine phoenix with a height of 9,999 meters rushed out. Then, the purple divine dragon and the purple divine phoenix that were hovering in the void started to chase each other and play with each other. After a full 3 minutes, the purple divine dragon and the purple divine phoenix stopped playing and looked directly at Wu Zhengjun and Zhongli Shuiqin in front of the palace hall. Then, the purple divine dragon and the purple divine phoenix roared and rushed down. Although the roars of the purple divine dragon and the purple divine phoenix were like thunder, everyone present could feel the goodwill of the divine dragon and the divine phoenix. Therefore, no one stopped the divine dragon and the divine phoenix. When the purple divine dragon and the purple divine phoenix were less than 1,000 meters away from the palace on the island, their huge bodies began to shrink rapidly. Soon, they became miniature versions of the divine dragon and the divine phoenix that were only 99 centimeters tall. Then, the miniature divine dragon and the divine phoenix continued to accelerate toward Wu Zhengjun and Zhongli Shuiqin and merged into their bodies. Just as the miniature divine phoenix merged into Zhongli Shuiqin's body, a terrifying and pure energy burst out of her body. Her eyes flashed with ecstasy. She immediately sat down and began to break through the bottleneck of the cultivation realm. However, Wu Zhengjun, who had also merged with the miniature divine dragon, was different. Although his body was also bursting with terrifying and pure energy, not only did the pure energy not help him break through the bottleneck of the cultivation realm, but also began to burn the blood in his body. His black hair turned white instantly, his strong body withered rapidly, and his vigorous vitality disappeared quickly. Without any hesitation, Yu Haoran appeared beside Wu Zhengjun in a flash. Then, he used all of his divine sense to help him suppress and seal the pure energy that was burning the blood in his body. However, just as his divine sense came into contact with Wu Zhengjun's body, a terrifying, murderous aura almost destroyed his divine sense. Quickly retracting his divine sense, Yu Haoran immediately used all of his origin energy and soul power. He planned to use his cultivation that was far superior to Wu Zhengjun's to forcefully suppress and expel the huge amount of pure energy that had erupted from his body. However, when he reached out to grab Wu Zhengjun's wrist, a terrifying suction force suddenly formed his body. Not only did it directly devour the origin energy and soul power he used, it also forcefully devoured the life essence in his body. Using the mysteries of the dual laws of life and death that he had barely comprehended, he forcefully shook off his left hand that was holding onto Wu Zhengjun's wrist. After quickly putting some distance between them, Yu Haoran looked gloomily at Wu Zhengjun, who had lost a large amount of life essence, and whose body was like a withered tree. Chapter 1875. Sunset Lake, outside the palace. Thaling, what are you doing? 30 seconds. From a moment Wu Zhengjun's blood began to burn until he used the profound mysteries of the law to forcefully break free from the devouring power. A total of 30 seconds had passed. In such a long time, not only did Thaling not help in time, but he also didn't immediately explain the reason for Wu Zhengjun's blood to burn. This made Yu Haoran very angry. What's going on? Thaling, who was immersed in the secret tracking technique, quickly woke up from the secret tracking technique after hearing Yu Haoran's angry shout and asked in confusion. However, when he noticed Wu Zhengjun's withered body and the terrifying, devouring power emitted from his body, he couldn't help but yell at Yu Haoran. Yu Haoran, immediately remove the 9 Palace 9 Bends mystic formation and then think of a way to move Zhengjun out of the island. After hearing Thaling's reminder, Yu Haoran immediately suppressed the anger in his body and then used his spiritual sense to inform the 81 martial saint experts in the formation to immediately remove the 9 Palace 9 Bends mystic formation. At the same time, he also hurriedly explained to Thaling that he couldn't touch Wu Zhengjun's body. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation of the difficulties, Thaling thought for a moment and hurriedly instructed, use an ordinary rope to tie Zhengjun up and then take him out of the island. After hearing Thaling's instructions, Yu Haoran immediately turned his head and instructed Zhongli Qingyang. Patriarch Qingyang, please help me find an ordinary hemp rope. I have an urgent need right now. Okay. Ever since the moment he used his blood to form the contract, Zhongli Qingyang had already decided to temporarily put aside his endless hatred for Yu Haoran before the martial saint realm ancestor returned to the family. He also formed a temporary alliance to help each other and deal with the crisis of Destiny's child Jixing together. Therefore, after hearing Yu Haoran's instructions, Zhongli Qingyang nodded and immediately flew to the edge of the palace. Because a portion of the ordinary people of the Zhongli family lived at the edge of the palace, only they had ordinary hemp ropes. Thaling, what's going on? While Zhongli Qingyang went to get an ordinary hemp rope, Yu Haoran hurriedly asked Wu Zhengjun the reason for the unforeseen event. Yu Haoran, I'm sorry. Without immediately answering Yu Haoran's question, Thaling suddenly and solemnly apologized to him. Thaling, what's wrong with you? The sudden apology made Yu Haoran even more puzzled. Yu Haoran, if I had listened to your advice at the beginning and investigated the reason for the disappearance of the bloodthirsty physique when Wu Zhengjun woke up, I would have been able to prepare in advance for the current situation and would not have put Wu Zhengjun in a fatal danger. Thaling explained with regret in his eyes and a tone full of self-blame. After hearing the reason for Thaling's apology, Yu Haoran felt both angry and helpless. He was angry because he trusted Thaling so much and gave him such an important task of investigating the disappearance of the bloodthirsty physique, but he did not carry it out seriously. He was helpless because of the respect he had for Thaling in his heart, which made him unable to blame him at all. After all, they had known each other for nearly 4 years. Thaling was not only his teacher, but also his elder who took care of and protected him. However, anger was anger, helplessness was helplessness. Since it had already happened, there was no point in investigating Thaling's negligence. The current urgent matter was to understand the reason for Wu Zhengjuan's fatal crisis and the final solution. Yu Haoran, Wu Zhengjuan's current situation may be a fatal crisis of his divine soul being destroyed, or it may be a chance for him to be reborn as a dragon. Seeing that Yu Haoran did not blame him for his negligence, Thaling secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He quickly put away the regret and self-blame in his eyes, and then began to explain in detail the reason for Wu Zhengjuan's fatal crisis. After listening to Thaling's detailed explanation, Yu Haoran raised his head and looked at Wu Zhengjun, who was like a dead tree, with an expectant and worried look in his eyes. According to Thaling's explanation, Wu Zhengjuan's bloodthirsty physique had not really disappeared, but because of the influence of regret, humiliation, anger, self-blame, and other complex emotions, it had officially entered the process of advancing to the bloodthirsty physique. If the bloodthirsty physique could successfully advance to the bloodthirsty physique, then the advancement of this special physique would not only increase Wu Zhengjuan's cultivation, strength, talent, potential, perseverance, and comprehension, it would also allow him to break through the immortal martial god realm, but also give him the hope of becoming a supreme existence in a short period of time. After all, the blood demon of the demonic path in ancient times was able to become a supreme existence because of the bloodthirsty physique's advancement to the bloodthirsty physique. However, the advancement of the bloodthirsty physique was not only extremely dangerous, it could cost one's life at any time, but also required an unimaginable amount of pure blood energy. This was also the reason why Thaling wanted to move Wu Zhengjun out of the island. After all, when the bloodthirsty physique began to advance, the suction force in Wu Zhengjuan's body would form a black hole that could forcibly devour all the blood energy in the world, a black hole that even a half-tribulation supreme expert would not be able to resist. If Wu Zhengjun was allowed to advance on the island, perhaps the hundreds of thousands of clansmen of the Zhongli clan would eventually become the energy for the advancement of the bloodthirsty physique. Elixir Deity Yu, here you go. Just as Yu Haoran was worried about whether Wu Zhengjuan's bloodthirsty physique could successfully advance to the bloodthirsty physique, Zhongli Qingyang quickly returned with a hemp rope that was as thick as a thumb and about 10 meters long. Thank you, Patriarch Qingyang. After receiving the hemp rope and thanking him, Yu Haoran directly used one end of the hemp rope to tie Wu Zhengjun up. He then lifted the other end of the hemp rope and soared into the sky, heading straight for the Blood Mist mountain range that was about 7,000 miles away from the Sunset Lake. The Blood Mist mountain range was ranked 9th among the 10 great forbidden grounds of the profound sky continent. Not only was the entire mountain range shrouded in dense blood energy all year round, there were also countless mutated beasts living in the mountain range, as well as many extremely vicious and evil people. It was the best place for Wu Zhengjun to advance his bloodthirsty physique. The Blood Mist mountain range was also the place that Thaling had chosen for Wu Zhengjun to advance his physique. This was also one of the reasons why he blamed himself for not making preparations in advance. How long? I will go with the Patriarch to see what's going on. You and the other elders will immediately activate the Qiuyun Soul Fall Formation and be responsible for comforting the clansmen on the island. Chapter 1876. In the Blood Mist Mountains. Using the power of the laws of the two elements, Yu Haoran arrived at the Blood Mist Mountains just before the bloodthirsty physique officially advanced to the blood-devouring physique. Without any hesitation, he used his pure physical strength and the inertia of the hemp rope to throw Wu Zhengjun into the depths of the Blood Mist Mountains. Even though Wu Jingjun had lost the essence of his body, the defense of Emperor Wu's body as an early fifth-stage divine emperor would not weaken. Therefore, Yu Haoran was not worried that the impact of landing would hurt him. Wu. After Wu Jingjun was thrown into a spring in the depths of the Blood Mist Mountains, a blood-red giant blood tiger that was nearly 70 meters long suddenly appeared beside the spring. The blood tiger roared in a low voice while staring at the tempting food in the spring. When the bloodthirsty physique advanced to the blood-devouring physique, it would forcibly extract all the life essence from the flesh and fuse it with the heart that had the function of producing blood. It was also because of this that Wu Zhengjuan's body, which looked like a withered tree, actually contained a huge amount of pure blood energy. And this kind of rich and pure blood energy was comparable to a first-grade elixir to the strange beasts and evil cultivators in the Blood Mist Mountains. Therefore, when the giant blood tiger was greedily staring at Wu Jingjun, more than 20 strange beasts with blood-red bodies gathered around the spring, as well as 3 evil cultivators who had reached the peak of the 9th stage martial saint realm. Whoosh! As humans, the wisest of all creatures, the 3 evil martial saints quickly realized that as time passed, the vast amount of pure blood energy contained within a shriveled human in the spring water would attract more and more powerful exotic beasts and opponents of their own kind. As such, after the 3 of them exchanged glances, one of the skinny cultivators who excelled in speed broke through the air resistance and directly ran towards Wu Jingjun in the spring, while his 2 companions worked together to fend off the dozen or so exotic beasts that had fallen into a frenzy. Whoa! Hiss! Ow! The moment the 3 evil cultivators moved, more than 20 strange beasts roared angrily around the spring. Accompanied by the angry roars, the blood tiger and the 20 strange beasts around the spring all rushed toward the small martial cultivator who wanted to snatch Wu Jingjun. Boom! Just as the blood tiger, who was the closest to the target, moved, a blood-red sword light directly cut its forehead. Although the blood tiger's strong defense did not heavily injure, it was the impact of the sword light. The blood tiger was forced back a dozen steps. However, just as the blood tiger was repelled by the evil martial artist's sneak attack and was about to launch another fierce attack, the thin martial artist who had grabbed Wu Zhengjuan's shoulder suddenly howled. Accompanied by a miserable howl, the small martial saint realm, the small martial saint realm, the martial saint realm in just 3 seconds, the small martial cultivator, who was at the peak of the 9th level martial saint, was completely turned into a pile of white powder, which then floated into the flowing spring. The small martial cultivator's flesh and soul essence officially started the process of the blood-devouring physique's advancement. The traction force that had been lurking in Wu Zhengjuan's body suddenly appeared above his head and formed a 1-meter diameter black hole, which began to forcibly draw and devour the surrounding blood mist and all the creatures that contained the essence of flesh and blood. Wu Zhengjuan's action of swallowing the small martial cultivator in an instant had already made his companion aware of the danger. When the black hole formed by the traction force appeared, a strong sense of danger made him immediately turn around and plan to escape. Unfortunately, the evil cultivator who was at the peak of the 9th level martial saint had abundant flesh and blood essence in his body, which was exactly the energy needed for the advancement of the blood-devouring physique. Therefore, the sudden increase in power of the traction force directly enveloped the evil cultivator, and then forcibly sucked him into the black hole. The death of the skinny cultivator who had turned into white powder and his companion, who had been forcefully swallowed by the black hole, made the 20-odd strange beasts around the stream and the remaining evil cultivator immediately realize that the withered corpse in the stream was not a treasure that contained pure blood energy, but an evil object that represented slaughter and disaster. Therefore, the evil cultivator and the 20-odd strange beasts did not hesitate in the slightest, and directly turned around and fled into the depths of the Blood Mist mountain range. However, after swallowing a large amount of blood mist around the spring and 2 peak 9th level martial saints, The traction force formed by the black hole had further increased. The rapidly expanding traction force directly enveloped all the strange beasts and evil cultivators who intended to escape, and then began to forcibly drag them into the black hole. Although more than 20 strange beasts and evil cultivators had overdrawn more than half of their demonic power and soul power to frantically increase the strength of the suction force, they were ultimately unable to escape the fate of being devoured by the suction force as it grew stronger and stronger. Pill guide you, what's going on? When Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang saw Wu Jingjun floating in the spring water and the black hole condensed above his head, devouring over 20 mutated beasts and evil cultivators one after another, their eyes filled with shock and disbelief. As a martial god in the late ancient era, Zhongli Mingjing vaguely felt a sense of familiarity, as if he had heard of a similar scene before. It was only because too much time had passed that he could not immediately recall it, and could not help but ask. The advancement of a special physique. Yu Haoran retracted his gaze from Wu Jingjun and turned around to look at Zhongli Mingjing, and replied with an indifferent expression on his face. The advancement of a special physique. Zhongli Mingjing repeated the contents of Yu Haoran's reply, and used the contents of the reply to stimulate his subconscious, and use it to find the answer to this familiar feeling. Suddenly, a light flashed through his mind, and he finally knew the source of this familiar feeling. Pill guide you. Does Zheng Jun have a special physique that is bloodthirsty? Zhongli Mingjing's expression suddenly became nervous as he asked. That's right. Yu Haoran nodded and admitted. Pill guide you. Is Zheng Juan's current state the advancement of his bloodthirsty physique? Zhongli Mingjing's eyes flashed with a trace of fear, and he became even more nervous as he asked this question. That's right. Yu Haoran continued to nod as he admitted this. After receiving Yu Haoran's confirmation, Zhongli Mingjing took a few steps back as he revealed a fearful and complicated expression as he looked at Wu Jingjun and at the black hole above Wu Jingjuan's head that was swallowing everything. Ancestor Mingjing, what's going on? Zhongli Qingyang was very confused by Zhongli Mingjing's strange actions, and he continued to ask this question. Chapter 1877. Above the Blood Mist Mountains. If it weren't for Yu Haoran using a special secret technique to slaughter the 18 martial gods of the Zhongli family, causing the family to temporarily lose a deep foundation, they wouldn't have been able to resolve the crisis of extermination. If it weren't for Yu Haoran taking out 9 rare treasures, such as the ginseng fruit and the immortal ascension pill, which could allow him to advance to an immortal deity and increase a part of the family's foundation. With Wu Zhongjuan's lowly background, ordinary appearance, and unknown status, it was impossible for him to agree to the marriage between Wu Zhijun and Zhongli Shuiqin. Therefore, when Zhongli Qingyang heard Ancestor Mingjing say that Zhongli Shuiqin wasn't good enough for Wu Jingjun, and that the marriage between the two of them was completely a marriage between the Zhongli family and the Zhongli family, he couldn't help but curl his lips in disbelief. Afraid that Zhongli Qingyang's attitude of looking down on Wu Jingjun would provoke Yu Haoran's displeasure, Zhongli Mingjing hurriedly reminded him. Qingyang, in the 3rd floor of the family's hidden scriptures pavilion, there are detailed records of some famous people in recent times. Do you still remember the Gorfiend Prime? Could it be the Gorfiend Prime who turned into a sea of blood and swallowed the starry sky? Zhongli Qingyang asked with a hint of admiration in his voice. That's right. As he nodded to confirm, Zhongli Mingjing's eyes revealed a look of reminiscence as he narrated. The Gorfiend Prime debuted only 2 years before me. We can be said to be competitors of the same generation. Since I have the inherited bloodline of my ancestor, the Eternal Green Prime, and the Gorfiend only has the bloodthirsty physique, which is ranked 999th among thousands of special physiques, I had an absolute advantage in the competition before the Emperor Wu realm. However, just as I was preparing to break through to the immortal martial god realm, the Gorfiend, whose cultivation was only at the peak of the 3rd grade of the Emperor Wu realm, suddenly encountered an unforeseen event. Not only did his mind suffer an unimaginable injury. But even the space of his sea of consciousness completely collapsed. Basically, he was reduced to a powerless, ordinary person. However, no one expected that blood demon, who was about to become an ordinary person, would receive a heaven-defying opportunity to transform his life. The bloodthirsty physique unexpectedly advanced to the bloodthirsty physique, which is ranked even higher. At the same time, the advancement of the blood-devouring physique has greatly increased my talent, potential, willpower, and comprehension. My crazy devouring of the pure blood energy between heaven and earth has allowed Blood Demon to break through to the martial god realm in one go. He has become a godly expert before me. Since then, I've been at a complete disadvantage in my competition with the Blood Demon. The Blood Demon became the most outstanding figure of our era, and the only monstrous genius to reach the Supreme Being realm. Hearing Ancestor Ming Jing's description of Blood Demon's growth and thinking about the bloodthirsty physique that Yu Haoran had mentioned, Zhongli Qingyang, who understood the connection, also took a few steps back and looked at Wu Zhengjun with shock in his eyes. If Wu Zhengjun's bloodthirsty physique had successfully advanced to the bloodthirsty physique, then just like the Blood Demon and Ancestor Ming Jing back then, he would have reached the godly realm before Zhongli Qingyang. Moreover, the advancement of the bloodthirsty physique had greatly increased his talent, potential, willpower, and comprehension. It also gave him the potential and hope to reach the Supreme Being realm in a short period of time. If the advancement of the bloodthirsty physique went smoothly, then, as Ancestor Ming Jing had said, Zhongli Shuiqin really wasn't a good match for Wu Zhengjun. The marriage of the two of them would be a little too much for the Zhongli family. I didn't expect Ancestor Ming Jing to know Blood Demon Prime. Yu Haoran, who had also heard Zhongli Ming Jing's description of the Blood Demon's growth, exclaimed with a hint of envy and desire in his eyes. After all, to be able to have a powerful opponent on the path to the pinnacle of the martial way as a goal to constantly chase after, whether it was the increase of one's cultivation and strength or the persistence of one's belief in the martial way, it was an unimaginable motivation. If he could have such an opponent in reality to motivate him, Yu Haoran believed that he would have reached the immortal godly realm long ago and would do his best to reach the Supreme Being realm. We know each other, but we don't know each other well. Zhongli Ming Jing added with a hint of pity in his eyes. In fact, the Blood Demon's background was similar to Wu Zhengjun's. They were both insignificant people who came from remote areas. Although he had made a name for himself by daring to risk his life, to Zhongli Ming Jing, who came from the head of the 5 great reclusive families, the difference between their identities was like the difference between a firefly and the moon. He simply looked down on the Blood Demon, who came from a lowly background. When the Blood Demon had advanced due to his special physique, he had displayed talent and strength that looked down on all heroes, causing Zhongli Ming to want to befriend him. However, due to the sudden change in his identity and status, Zhongli Ming no longer had the qualifications and ability to befriend him and obtain his true friendship. Therefore, not being able to obtain the Blood Demon's friendship was Zhongli Ming Jing's lifelong regret. After giving it some thought, he understood why Zhongli Ming Jing felt that it was a pity. A hint of disdain and mockery flashed in Yu Haoran's eyes. He turned around and continued to pay attention to Wu Zhengjun's special physique's advancement process. While Zhongli Ming Jing was narrating the Blood Demon's growth, the suction force formed by the black hole had already covered an area of several thousand kilometers. It had even reached the core of the Blood Mist mountain range. At the same time, the suction force's ability to devour everything alarmed countless Emperor Wu, demigods, and god-level evil cultivators, as well as powerful mutated beasts at the core of the mountain range. They watched as the suction force formed by the black hole above Wu Zhengjun's head not only devoured the thick blood mist that covered the entire mountain range, but it also did not spare any living beings. A red-robed, white-haired old man who had just woken up and was a peak third-grade martial god ordered the several thousand evil cultivators gathered around him. Set up the evil spirit devouring formation immediately. directly devour the black hole above that human's head. At the same time, the few divine beasts that had just woken up also roared fiercely with murderous intent. Coupled with the pressure from their powerful bloodlines and auras, they forced several tens of thousands of powerful mutated beasts to set up simple formations with the same devouring ability to resist and counterattack the terrifying suction force formed by the black hole. The suction force formed by the black hole had reached the peak 6th grade martial god realm due to the thick blood mist and the flesh and blood essence of several tens of thousands of mutated beasts and evil cultivators within several thousand kilometers. The evil spirit devouring formation set up by the evil cultivators and the simple devouring formation set up by several tens of thousands of powerful mutated beasts were also at the peak 6th grade martial god realm. Therefore, under the circumstances where their strengths were equal, the black hole gradually began to fall into a disadvantageous position against the two formations. Chapter 1878. Inside the Blood Mist Mountains. As the saying went, the first spurt of energy, the second spurt of energy, and the third spurt of energy. Regardless of whether it was a breakthrough in the martial way or the advancement of a special body constitution, one had to succeed in one spur of energy. Being at a disadvantage, the black hole was temporarily unable to continue devouring the thick blood mist, exotic beasts, and evil cultivators that contained the essence of flesh and blood. This affected the advancement of the devourer physique. Seeing that Wu Zhengjuan's body, which had become plump with great difficulty, was starting to shrivel again due to the lack of pure blood energy, Yu Haoran immediately took out the Yuan killer sword. Using the power of laws of the two flashes, he appeared at the core of the Blood Mist Mountains at a speed that was close to teleportation. Soul Destruction. The soul destruction technique of the Universal Annihilation swordplay slashed directly at the red-robed, white-haired old man who was controlling the evil spirit devourer formation. Damn it! Originally, with the red-robed, white-haired old man's strength as a peak 3rd grade martial god, he could easily destroy the sharp sword chi condensed by the soul destruction swordplay. However, controlling the evil spirit devourer formation directly affected nearly 90% of his strength. Therefore, when faced with the sharp sword chi that could directly harm one's spirit and whose power was at the level of the beginner martial god, the selfish red-robed, white-haired old man cursed inwardly. He immediately gave up control of the evil spirit devourer formation and quickly destroyed the sharp sword chi. Without the red-robed, white-haired old man's control of the formation, the evil spirit devourer formation was quickly torn apart by the terrifying suction force formed by the black hole. Without the defense and protection of the evil spirit devourer formation, thousands of martial saints, Emperor Wu, and demigod experts were forcefully dragged into the black hole by the suction force and became the pure energy for the advancement of the devourer physique. Wu Zhengjuan's shriveled body was once again plump and healthy. Boy, the green mountains will not change, and the green water will flow forever. I, the red-robed old man, will never forget today's hatred. After quickly destroying the sharp sword chi, the red-robed, white-haired old man wanted to immediately kill Yu Haoran and regain control of the evil spirit devourer formation to resist and counterattack the black hole that had formed above Wu Zhengjuan's head. But right at the moment he was about to make a move, he unexpectedly sensed two terrifying auras that were like the depths of the ocean concealed at the edge of the Blood Mist mountain range, and he instantly knew that the blue-clothed young man that dared attack him had the protection of a top expert in secret. Therefore, the red-robed, white-haired old man, who cherished his life, did not hesitate in the slightest. After leaving behind a threatening sentence, he soared into the air, intending to escape from the Blood Mist mountain range. Brother Black Rat, do it! Seeing that the red-robed, white-haired old man was planning to escape, Yu Haoran quickly instructed the Life Calamity Spirit Rat to continue using the soul-extinguishing sword technique to attack the red-robed, white-haired old man. In fact, when Yu Haoran chose to attack the red-robed, white-haired old man as a breakthrough point to break through the evil spirit-devouring formation. The life calamity spirit mouse had already begun to collect his aura. Moreover, through the collected aura, it was able to find and lock onto the red-robed, white-haired old man's name on the Destiny Stone tablet. Therefore, after hearing Yu Haoran's instructions, the fate calamity spirit mouse immediately stretched out its black claws and followed the red-robed, white-haired old man's name. "You're courting death." He had only temporarily escaped from the Blood Mist mountain range because he was afraid of the two-peak 9th-grade martial gods at the edge of the mountain range. He was not afraid of the arrogant young man before him. As a result, when he saw Yu Haoran recklessly continuing to attack him, the red-robed, white-haired old man furiously roared and immediately took out a blood-red sword that had reached the mid-grade of the god realm. When he wanted to use all of his divine force and soul energy to attack Yu Haoran with the mysteries of the laws he had comprehended, 80% of his divine force and soul energy suddenly disappeared. Coupled with the instant loss of his connection with the mysteries of the laws, the red-robed, white-haired old man almost fell out of the air. Although the red-robed old man wanted to immediately use his will to investigate the reason for the change in his body, in the face of the swift and fierce sword chi, he could only temporarily deal with the sword chi that could threaten his life. Boom! With a violent rumble, the red-robed, white-haired old man, whose strength had almost fallen to the god realm, was instantly heavily injured. At the same time, he was knocked back into the Blood Mist mountain range because of the powerful rebound from the collision of the swords. No! Just as the red-robed old man fell to the location where the evil spirit-devouring formation was set up, a terrifying suction force instantly enveloped him and forcefully dragged him into the black hole formed above Wu Zhengjuan's head. Although the fate calamity spirit mouse had removed its control over the red-robed old man's fate the moment he fell into the Blood Mist mountain range, the red-robed, white-haired old man could only let out an unwilling roar and completely disappear into the black hole when faced with the suction force that had reached the early 7th grade of the martial god realm. After instantly returning to the edge of the mountain range, Yu Haoran stared nervously at Wu Zhengjun. He wanted to see if the flesh and blood essence of a peak 3rd grade martial god realm god could complete the final evolution of the blood-devouring physique. However, the result made him feel disappointed, but at the same time, endless expectations emerged in his heart. Although the flesh and blood essence of a peak 3rd grade martial god realm expert did not complete the evolution of the blood-devouring physique in the end, the black hole that suddenly doubled the diameter allowed the suction force to reach the peak 9th grade martial god realm. The range of the suction force directly extended to the entire Blood Mist mountain range. The thick blood mist that covered the entire mountain range, the flesh and blood essence of countless strange beasts and evil warriors, faced with an unimaginably large amount of pure blood energy. What realm would Wu Zhengjuan's cultivation and strength reach after completing the evolution of the blood-devouring physique in the end? Junior brother Yu, although the mountain range in front of us is covered by the thick blood mist, which prevents me from using my divine, thought to check the situation in the mountain range, my keen sixth sense tells me that there is definitely a top expert whose strength is not inferior to mine hiding in the mountain range. Just as Yu Haoran was filled with endless expectations for Wu Zhengjuan's final achievements, Qing Feng, who had suddenly taken out his natal divine sword, reminded him with a grave expression. "Pill God Yu, brother Qing Feng is right. There are indeed some strange beasts and human experts whose cultivation and strength have reached the peak of 9th grade martial god realm hidden in the Blood Mist mountain range." Just as Qing Feng's reminder fell, Zhongli Mingjing, who had an equally grave expression, agreed. "Senior brother Qing Feng, Senior Mingjing, you can rest assured. I've already made preparations." At the same time that Yu Haoran indicated to Qing Feng and Zhongli Mingjing to relax with a smile, he took out an exquisite pill bottle and poured out 3 medicinal pills that emitted a rich fragrance from it. Actually, when he was discussing with Thaling that the Blood Mist Mountain Range would be the source of energy for Wu Zhenjun to evolve the blood-devouring physique, he had already considered the dangers of the Blood Mist Mountain Range. According to his understanding of the Death Swamp and the endless forest from his previous life, combined with the changes in the environment, he believed that the Blood Mist Mountain Range, which was also one of the 10 Great Forbidden Zones, would definitely hide some strange beasts and human experts with peak strength. Chapter 1879. At the edge of the Blood Fog Mountains, Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang, who were the closest to the pills, couldn't help but take a deep sniff of the pills when they saw Yu Haoran pour out 3 sparkling, translucent pills that emitted a rich aroma from the exquisite pill bottle. Palace, who was a little further away from the elixir and had personally experienced the power of the divine sleep elixir, warned Lu Yuan and the others with a sudden change of expression. Seal your 6 senses immediately. Don't breathe in the fragrance of the elixir. After hearing the Scarlet Lotus warning, Qing Feng, Yusiki, Lu Yuan, and the long-armed ape immediately sealed their 6 senses and quickly distanced themselves from Yu Haoran. This is Zhongli Qingyang, who had also heard Palace's warning, was about to force out the fragrance of the elixir that he had just inhaled. Suddenly, he felt sleepy in his sea of consciousness. He could not help but yawn and close his eyes uncontrollably. As for Zhongli Mingjing, who had a profound cultivation base, he only managed to last a second longer than Zhongli Qingyang. He also yawned and fell asleep. Deep sleep meant that one's mind was completely in a state of rest. He could neither mobilize the original essence and divine power in his dantian, nor control the spirit in his sea of consciousness. If Qing Feng had not discovered it in time and used his divine power to support Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing, they would have fallen into the dense forest at the edge of the Blood Fog Mountains. Junior brother Yu, quickly wake them up. Whether it was their identity, cultivation, or relationship, Yu Haoran had been very rude for not warning them of the power of the divine sleep elixir's fragrance. If he didn't immediately think of a way to remove the effects of the sleeping god pill and let Zhongli Qingyang and Zhongli Mingjing quickly wake up, it would probably cause them to be displeased and affect the marriage that had been formed with great difficulty. Hearing Qing Feng's unhappy reminder, Yu Haoran smiled and took out an elixir that emitted a fishy smell. Then, he wrapped it with his original essence and placed it in front of their noses for a moment. In less than a second, Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang woke up at the same time. When Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang thought about how they couldn't resist the invasion of sleepiness and how they fell into a deep sleep for a short period of time, their gazes towards Yu Haoran were filled with terror, fear, and relief. They knew that Yu Haoran had already shown mercy to the Zhongli clan. Otherwise, Yu Haoran could easily massacre the entire Zhongli clan with the pills that even Zhongli Mingjing, a peak 9th grade martial god, could not resist the sleepiness. Senior Mingjing, clan leader Qingyang, I'm really sorry. I was so focused on dealing with the hidden danger in the depths of the Blood Mist Mountains that I forgot to remind you. When he saw the fear and relief in Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang's eyes, a trace of pride flashed in Yu Haoran's eyes. He hurriedly cupped his hands and apologized. I'm fine. In the face of Yu Haoran's apology, Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang hurriedly waved their hands to indicate that it was fine. Yu Haoran held the 3 pills tightly in his hand and nodded towards Qing Feng. Then, he continued to use the law of flash and appearance to quickly appear in front of the 5 divine beasts who were desperately resisting the suction force with their own strength. Then, he crushed one of the pills and used his Yuan Qi to disperse the powder of the pill. Then, he continued to rush towards the depths of the Blood Mist Mountains. Yu Haoran stopped at a location where he could vaguely sense a strong fatal danger. He then crushed the remaining 2 god sleeping elixirs and used his origin energy to disperse the powder of the elixirs. After that, Yu Haoran flashed back to the edge of the mountain range. Wu, Just as he returned to the edge of the blood mist mountains, a deafening roar suddenly sounded from the location where he had crushed the two pills. Accompanied by the deafening roar, a terrifying aura, which shook the entire blood mist mountains, rose rapidly from the depths of the mountains. This is the winged flying tiger, which has touched the half-tribulation supreme realm. The terrifying aura and the familiar roar made Qing Feng's expression change drastically. Then, he asked Yu Haoran with a very nervous expression, "Junior brother Yu, can the stage 1, first-class divine sleeping pill make a half-tribulation supreme realm exotic beast fall into a deep sleep?" "Yes." Without any hesitation, Yu Haoran nodded and replied with certainty. Previously, when he had successfully refined the stage 1, first-class divine sleeping pill, Thowling had personally tested the efficacy of the divine sleeping pill. Under the dual protection of the space-time energy and the 30 chaotic marks, he could only hold on for less than 3 seconds before he fell into a deep sleep because he could not resist the effects of the pill. After that, based on his personal experience, Thowling gave out the power of the stage 1, first-class divine sleeping pill, which was enough to make all living creatures below the first tribulation supreme realm fall into a deep sleep. This was also one of the trump cards that Yu Haoran dared to confront the Zhongli family head-on. Just as Yu Haoran gave an affirmative reply, the terrifying aura, which was rising rapidly, suddenly paused for a moment. Then, the terrifying aura began to fall rapidly and finally disappeared into the depths of the mountains. Sizzle. Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang could not help but gasp when they saw how the winged flying tiger, which had touched upon the level of half-tribulation sovereign, was unable to resist the effects of the divine spirit's sleep and had fallen into a deep slumber, awaiting its fate of being devoured. Due to the restrictions of the heavens consciousness, the supreme existences at the half-tribulation supreme realm and the supreme realm could not interfere with the situation in the Tianxin continent for the time being. Possessing a secret skill that could weaken the strength of the opponent and an elixir that could make the opponent fall into a deep sleep, the means that Yu Haoran had displayed at this moment already had the strength to dominate the entire Tianxin continent. He also had the confidence to contend with the heavens consciousness and destiny's child. Therefore, after recovering from the shock, Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang looked at each other and saw a flash of surprise in each other's eyes. As the first elixir that was crushed started to take effect, the 5 divine beasts that were in a deep sleep were forcefully pulled into the black hole by the suction force, and then turned into pure blood energy for the blood-devouring physique to advance. Without the obstruction of the 5 divine beasts, the suction force, which had increased in power, immediately engulfed the depths of the blood fog mountains like a rolling wave. Sigh. Zhongli Mingjing could not help but sigh when he saw the suction force engulfing the entire blood fog mountains and the thick blood fog that was being devoured continuously. Chapter 1880. The Edge of the Blood Mist Mountains. After hearing Zhongli Mingjing's sigh, Yu Haoran suddenly had a very strange feeling in his heart. He felt like he had overlooked some important detail, but he couldn't remember it at the moment. However, when the suction force formed by the black hole completely covered the blood mist mountains and crazily devoured the thick blood mist, as well as the flesh and blood essence of countless strange beasts and evil cultivators, the quantitative change finally led to a qualitative change, and finally caused Wu Zhengjuan's body to rapidly expand. Yu Haoran hurriedly dispelled the strange feeling in his heart, and then looked at Wu Zhengjun with a nervous expression. Because according to the Thowling's description of the bloodsucker physique, when Wu Zhengjun devoured the pure blood energy to the limit, it would forcefully change his body, his bones, his internal organs, his blood, his spirit, and ultimately even his fate and luck. And this kind of change from the inside to the outside was the final stage of the evolution of the bloodsucker physique, and also the most dangerous time. If the slightest carelessness led to the consequences, Wu Zhengjun might very well end up without a corpse left. Yu Shixiang, what's wrong with Zhengjun? Just as the evolution of the bloodsucker physique reached the most critical moment, Zhongli Shuiqin, who had just finished her breakthrough, immediately rushed to the edge of the blood mist mountains. When she saw Wu Zhengjun, who was constantly expanding like a balloon, she immediately asked worriedly, "Miss Shuiqin, don't be nervous. Zhengjun is currently undergoing the transformation of a special physique. As long as he has a special physique, in the end he can." Just as Yu Haoran turned around to comfort the worried Zhongli Shuiqin, an explosion that resounded through the clouds suddenly came from behind him. Boom! Immediately shut up and turned around. Yu Haoran clenched his fists and looked above the mountain stream at the river of blood formed by Wu Zhengjuan's explosion. Xiaojun, Zhongli Shuiqin, who had seen Wu Zhengjuan's explosion in advance, was stunned for a few seconds in disbelief, and then cried out hoarsely. Bang! Zhongli Shuiqin's hoarse cry made Yu Haoran, who was already very nervous, feel even more flustered, so much so that he couldn't continue to pay attention to the blood river and the subtle changes in the blood river. Helplessly, he could only take advantage of Zhongli Shuiqin's unpreparedness to directly knock her out, and then send her to Zhongli Qingyang. Thaling, how is it? Returning to his previous position, Yu Haoran hurriedly asked Thaling's observation, while continuing to pay attention to the changes in the blood size. So far, everything is normal, and it's developing in a good direction. The tower spirit, who was paying attention to the changes in the blood river, replied. Thaling, what do you need me to do? After hearing Thaling's reply, Yu Haoran's nervous mood eased a little, but he didn't want to just stand by and watch. He wanted to use his own ability to help Wu Zhengjun complete the promotion of the blood-devouring physique as soon as possible. Yu Haoran, you have done what you should do. The rest can only depend on Zhengjuan's own luck. Thaling shook his head and reminded. In front of the deep pit in the Hengduan Mountains in the southern region, just as Wu Zhengjun used the means of transforming into the blood river to launch the final impact on the promotion of the blood-devouring physique, two women suddenly appeared in front of the deep pit in the Hengduan Mountains where the ancient demon clan was sealed. Two beautiful women with a temperament that could bewitch all living things and a face that could bring disaster to countries and people. Old Ancestor Cyan. According to Old Ancestor Shui Feng's calculations, the great heavenly cycle star formation that sealed the ancient era's demon clan will be completely unsealed in 2 to 3 days at the very most. Why don't we wait until the day when the seal is unsealed before coming? Looking at the bottomless pit, one of the beautiful women, whose appearance and temperament were slightly inferior, asked with a puzzled look in her eyes. As the overlords that once ruled the ancient continent for hundreds of millions of years, the ancient demon clans sealed by the cosmic stars formation not only have their temperaments become more violent and bloodthirsty, but they also retain the arrogance and ignorance of being supreme in their bones. The beautiful woman, whose appearance and temperament were even more superior, explained with a 9-colored light in her eyes. Wanru, after the seal of the cosmic stars formation is broken, do you think those powerful demon emperors and demon gods will obediently listen to the arrangements and orders of our Green Hill Fox clan? Definitely not. After thinking for a while, Su Wanru, who had once clashed with Yu Haoran in the Southern Region Hidden Dragon rankings, shook his head and replied, Moreover, they will in turn rule over our Green Hill Fox clan and all of the strange beasts. Therefore, I need to take advantage of the moment when the seal of the Cosmic Stars formation is loosening to use a secret technique to contact our sealed ancestors in advance. I need to understand some of the ancient demon clans' movements in advance, and then decide the final attitude of our Green Hill Fox clan towards the ancient demon clan's emergence. After a simple reply, the beautiful woman called Ancestor Cyan strode to the side of the pit where a formation flag was about to be destroyed, and then sat down cross-legged. First, she took out a formation flag that similarly emanated the rich power of stars from the independent space she opened up, as well as a green foxtail that emanated a strong and mysterious aura. Secondly, she replaced the original formation flags that sealed the deep pit with the formation flags that exuded the power of the stars. Then, She used a special secret technique to extract a drop of golden blood from the green foxtail and merge the golden blood into the formation flags. Finally, she slowly closed her eyes. On the other hand, Su Wanru immediately released the divine sense of a peak third tribulation demigod, vigilant of the movements in the entire Hungduan Mountains to prevent anyone from disturbing ancestor signs communication and communication with the ancestors. The communication and communication did not last very long, less than 10 minutes. Ancestor Cyan, who suddenly opened her eyes, revealed a look of incomparable surprise. Seeing that Su Cyan had ended the communication and communication, Su Wanru hurriedly stepped forward and asked, "Ancestor Cyan, how are the ancestors?" "Good, very good. It's completely beyond our imagination." Unable to suppress the joy in her heart, Su Cyan said good 3 times in a row, took a deep breath, and began to explain the situation of the sealed ancestors in detail. After hearing Su Cyan's introduction, Su Wanru's breathing gradually became heavier, and his eyes revealed the same uncontrollable joy. "Ancestor Cyan, could it be that the heavens are looking after our Green Hill Fox clan, allowing 3 of our ancestors to break through the limit of 9 tails and finally ascend to the supreme realm of supremacy, and 9 more ancestors to break through the half-tribulation supremacy realm? Wanru, I don't know if the heavens are looking after our Green Hill Fox clan, but I do know that this is the time for the Green Hill Fox clan to truly rise, and the best time to rule the Tianshan continent." Chapter 1881. At the edge of the Blood Mist Mountains. One day and one night, the Blood River that floated above the spring did not undergo any changes even after a full day and night had passed. It was as if it was an ordinary river. If it were not for the fact that the blood water in the Blood River did not show any signs of solidification and the life essence it contained did not dissipate at all, Yu Haoran even suspected that Wu Jingjun had died in the explosion just now. Fortunately, when his patience had reached its limit and he was about to take a risk to use his divine thought to check the situation of the Blood River, the still Blood River suddenly began to boil violently. Along with the violent boiling of the Blood River, traces of liquid blood essence slowly rose into the air and then slowly condensed into a human in midair. Although the human formed by the blood essence did not have a completely clear facial features, Yu Haoran also knew from the basic outline of the body that the blood essence had reshaped the human being. It was Wu Jingjun who was about to complete the advancement of the blood-sucking physique. Who, just as the blood essence began to condense into Wu Jingjun's body, Thowling in the sea of consciousness let out a long sigh of relief, and then explained in detail the reason for the change in the Blood River just now. The bones, blood vessels, meridians, internal organs, flesh, and soul are gradually reshaping, indicating that the advancement of the blood-sucking physique has passed the most dangerous process. Yu Haoran, the next step is the process of Zhongjuan's transformation. After hearing Thowling's reminder and introduction, Yu Haoran, who had been on tenterhooks, could not help but let out a sigh of relief. Then, he took out the memory jade slip that Wu Jingjun had personally sorted and entered in advance. And he also sorted out what had happened in the past 2 days, and then entered a new jade slip. The advancement of the blood-sucking physique was in fact to shatter the original and then reshape a new Wu Jingjun. And the reshaped soul was like a newborn baby, a blank piece of paper without any consciousness or memory. Therefore, he needed to transfer all the memories of Wu Zhongjuan's life into the soul when it was completely reshaped. In this way, not only would he be able to return to the old Wu Jingjun, but he would also be able to retain his previous understanding of cultivation. Before the bloodthirsty physique had advanced to the bloodthirsty physique, the blood demon supreme of the ancient era was a cheerful person who enjoyed helping others. As for the soul that had been remolded when he advanced to the bloodthirsty physique, when he was unable to obtain the inheritance of his previous memories, he was affected by his physique and environment. In the end, he became a ruthless, violent, and bloodthirsty demon, and finally died under the encirclement of several supreme experts. Yu Haoran, Input your memories now. Just as the human facial features condensed from the blood essence completely revealed Wu Zhengjuan's appearance, the Thaling and the knowledge See immediately ordered. After hearing the Thaling's order, Yu Haoran did not hesitate in the slightest, and directly crushed the 2 jade slips in his hand. Then, he used his divine sense to wrap around the 2 gray balls of energy formed from the memories, and forcefully inserted them into the soul that Wu Zhengjun had just reshaped. Yu Haoran, prepare spirit stones of the 4th level and above, a spiritual vein of the 5th level and above, as well as medicinal pills of the 3rd level and above, and assist Wu Zhengjun in completely transforming into a dragon. The Thaling continued to instruct as the energy of the memories entered Wu Zhengjuan's soul. 10,000 4th level spirit stones of the 1st to 9th level, 1,000 3rd level spirit stones of the 1st to 9th level, and 100 2nd level spirit stones of the 1st to 9th level. 3 5th level upper grade spiritual veins, and 1 4th level lower grade spiritual vein. 36 3rd level 9th level Qi boosting pills, 18 2nd level 9th level Qi nourishing pills, and 9 1st level Qianyuan fortune pills. These were the cultivation resources that Yu Haoran had already prepared from the storage ring after hearing the Thaling's order. Since the reshaped soul was a blank piece of paper without any memories, then the reshaped body would similarly be an ordinary person without any cultivation. Therefore, the spirit stones, spiritual veins, and medicinal pills that had just been taken out were all resources to assist Wu Zhengjuan's reshaping of cultivation. Yu Shixiang, is Xiao Jun completely safe now? Zhongli Shuiqin did not faint because of Yu Haoran's attack, and there was a trace of dissatisfaction and resentment in her heart. After listening to Zhongli Mingjing's detailed explanation of the advancement of the blood-devouring physique, she once again returned behind Yu Haoran, and then quietly accompanied him as he observed the changes in the blood river. When the blood essence in the blood river condensed into Wu Zhengjuan's body, she remained silent and did not speak. When Yu Haoran took out the 2 jade slips of memory inheritance, she continued to remain silent and did not disturb the other party. But when Yu Haoran took out a large amount of cultivation resources, a strong desire for knowledge continuously emerged in her heart, and in the end, she was unable to continue to remain silent and asked, "That's right." While nodding to confirm, Yu Haoran revealed a happy smile on his face as he explained. Breaking the shackles of the original body and physique and reshaping a perfect body and physique is the most dangerous part of the advancement of the blood-devouring physique. If there is even the slightest mistake, the soul will be destroyed, and not even a corpse will be left. Now, Zhengjuan's body and soul have been successfully reshaped. Next, he will use the reshaped body and soul to completely transform and become a divine dragon soaring in the sky. Yu Shixiang, I wonder what kind of transformation Xiao Jun will achieve after reshaping a perfect body and physique. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, Zhongli Shuiqin felt truly happy for Wu Zhengjun, but at the same time, she could not help but worry in her heart. This was because Wu Zhengjun was able to accept her and only love her. Apart from his wooden personality that did not know how to make girls like him, it was also because she could rely on her valiant strength and the deterrence of her hidden family behind her to not only prevent other women from getting close to Wu Zhengjun, but also to prevent him from falling in love with other women. However, if Wu Zhengjun relied on the advancement of the blood-devouring physique and his own cultivation and strength to break free from her suppression and ignore the deterrence of her family, then if he wanted to like and accept other women in the future, she would have no way to stop him. The reshaped perfect body and physique will allow Zhengjun to directly break through to the immortal martial god realm, and he will have the ability to break through to the supreme realm in a short time. In the future, Zhengjun will be a protagonist in the great calamity of the world, a powerful expert that no one can ignore. Yu Haoran's honest reply caused Zhongli Shuiqin's mood to immediately become complicated. At this moment, she hoped that Wu Zhengjun could successfully complete the transformation of his body and physique. At this moment, She dearly hoped that Wu Jingjun would make some mistakes during the transformation process, so that a situation that she could not control would not occur. Chapter 1882. At the edge of the Blood Mist Mountain Range, Wu Zhengjun knelt down in the air and respectfully kowtowed for the first time, then said with a solemn expression, "The first kowtow is to thank senior brother for taking care of me like a brother all these years." Then, after kowtowing for the second time respectfully, he looked at Zhongli Shuiqin, who was standing behind Yu Haoran, and said with a happy smile on his face, "The second kowtow is to thank senior brother for risking your life like a kind father to facilitate the union between junior brother and Shuiqin, and for giving junior brother a lifetime of happiness." Then, after kowtowing for the third time respectfully, he looked at the blood river that still contained a large amount of life essence under his feet and said with excitement in his eyes, "The third kowtow is to thank senior brother for giving me the opportunity to go against the heavens and change my fate like a teacher, and to obtain a new life." Seeing Wu Zhengjun kowtowing respectfully and hearing the reason for his kowtowing, Yu Haoran's eyes were filled with gratification and gratitude. He felt that all his efforts for Wu Zhengjun were worth it. After seeing Wu Zhengjun's actions, Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang had a thoughtful look in their eyes. Was it because they didn't care enough for their clansmen and didn't take care of all of them, which eventually led to the situation of factions and scheming against each other in the clan? "Zhengjun, when we left Pingyang City together, I promised you that you and I would be close partners in the martial way, and also brothers who trusted each other with life and death." Seeing Wu Zhengjun not getting up for a long time, Yu Haoran hurriedly persuaded and reminded him, fearing that it would delay his breakthrough. "So, everything you said just now is my responsibility as a brother, and also the person you don't need to thank the least. Of course, if you really want to thank me, then stand up now and use the blood-devouring physique that you just advanced to complete the most beautiful transformation of your life with all your strength. Then, accompany me to face all the enemies in the martial way." After hearing Yu Haoran's persuasion and reminder, Wu Zhengjun gritted his teeth and got up, then plunged directly into the blood river. Immediately after, the river of blood that had just calmed down began to boil again. Along with the boiling of the river of blood, everyone present could clearly feel that the life essence contained in the river of blood was rapidly flowing away. At the same time, at the center of the blood river, a weak aura was rapidly growing stronger. "Big sister, senior brother Qingfeng, senior brother Lu, brother Qi, I'll have to trouble you to guard the 4 cardinal directions of the Blood Mist Mountain Range." As one of the top 10 forbidden grounds in the profound Sky Continent, although people rarely went near the Blood Mist Mountain Range, Yu Haoran believed that the unforeseen event just now had most likely attracted the attention of some top experts. If some sinister people with ulterior motives took advantage of the critical moment of Wu Zhengjun's breakthrough to launch a sneak attack, it was very likely that it would affect the final results of the transformation, so he had to take precautions in advance. Qingfeng nodded in response and flew directly to the south of the Blood Mist Mountain Range. He was prepared to guard against any sneak attacks from the top powerhouses of the central region. Yu Siki flew to the west of the Blood Mist Mountains to defend against the sneak attacks from the top experts of the eastern region. Lu Yuan flew to the east of the Blood Mist Mountains to defend against the sneak attacks from the top experts of the western region. Palace, whose strength was slightly weaker, was to guard the north of the Blood Mist Mountains to defend against the sneak attacks from the top experts of the southern region. As for the long-armed ape, he clenched his fists tightly, his eyes revealing a strong sense of unwillingness. This was because he knew that he was not assigned the task of guarding. It was not because Yu Haoran looked down on him, but because his cultivation and strength were far inferior to Qingfeng and the other 3. He was not as safe as their guarding. Therefore, while he felt strongly unreconciled, his inner desire for strength grew even stronger. The strong desire for strength gradually stimulated the long-armed ape's fierce and aggressive genes in his bloodline inheritance. Traces of the inheritance memories merged into his mind, allowing him to slowly enter a state of epiphany. However, because everyone's attention was on the Blood River and Wu Zhengjuan's transformation using the life essence contained in the River of Blood, no one noticed the abnormality of the long-armed ape for the time being. With Qing Feng and the other three guarding, Yu Haoran did not need to worry about the risk of a sneak attack for the time being. At the same time, his attention returned to the Blood River. As the aura rising from the Blood River reached the peak of a 9th grade martial venerable, the blood in the Blood River began to gradually clear. This meant that the life essence in the Blood River was about to be completely devoured by Wu Zhejun. Without the slightest hesitation, Yu Haoran directly threw all the spirit stones, spiritual veins, and elixirs floating in front of him into the Blood River. As the spirit stones, spiritual veins, and elixirs that were thrown into the Blood River were shattered and quickly devoured, the powerful aura suddenly increased by nearly 100 times, causing Wu Zhengjuan's cultivation to return to the level of Emperor Wu. However, looking at the rapidly increasing aura, Yu Haoran could not help but frown. According to the energy that Wu Zhengjun needed to consume to break through his cultivation, the remaining life essence in the Blood River and the cultivation resources that had just been thrown into the Blood River, not to mention assisting Wu Zhengjun to break through to the immortal martial god realm, it was probably not enough to break through to the peak of Emperor Wu's 9th grade. In desperation, he could only continue to take out all the spirit stones and spiritual veins from the storage ring and the victor, as well as the elixirs that could be used to increase his cultivation and strength. However, in order to deal with the thunder tribulation formed by the soul-severing divine thunder, and during this period of time, to break through to the martial god realm, nearly 70% of the resources have been used up. Therefore, just as Wu Zhengjuan's cultivation successfully broke through to the peak of Emperor Wu's 7th grade, the spirit stones, spiritual veins, and elixirs that could be used to increase his cultivation had all been used up. Fortunately, Zhongli Shuiqin, who had seen in time that Wu Zhengjun needed a large amount of resources to successfully complete the transformation, completely corrected her attitude and hurriedly took out a large amount of spirit stones, spiritual veins, and elixirs and threw them into the Blood River. Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang looked at each other and also took out a large amount of cultivation resources and threw them into the Blood River. Thank you. After cupping his hands and thanking Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang, Yu Haoran carefully analyzed the cultivation resources that had been thrown into the Blood River and realized that it was still not enough to satisfy the energy that Wu Zhengjun needed to break through to the martial god realm. In desperation, he could only ask for help from Thaling in his mind. When he heard Yu Haoran mention the problem that Wu Zhengjun was facing, Thaling smiled and asked with a relaxed expression, "Yu Haoran, what kind of treasures are the most abundant in the 10 forbidden lands of the Tianxian continent?" "Rare flowers, rare herbs, and rare treasures," Yu Haoran replied after thinking for a while. "Wrong," Thaling said as he looked at the blood mist mountains in front of him as he firmly denied it. Chapter 1883. At the edge of the blood mist mountains. Spirit veins. After hearing Thaling's reminder, Yu Haoran realized that the black hole formed during the advancement of his bloodlust physique only devoured the thick blood mist that enveloped the entire mountain range, as well as the strange flowers and herbs in the mountain range, as well as the countless strange beasts and evil martial artists. It didn't extend underground to devour the spirit veins. When he thought of this, he immediately used all of his divine sense to scan the ground beneath the mountain range. He quickly discovered that there were many spirit veins of different grades hidden beneath the mountain range. Without any hesitation, Yu Haoran appeared above the mountain range in a flash. He used his origin energy and soul power to quickly form a giant palm that could blot out the sun. After that, he slammed it down onto the ground. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening boom, a 300-meter deep crater was formed in the ground of the mountain range. At the same time, a low-grade Class 7 spirit vein in the crater quickly condensed into a 100-meter-long white dragon. Roar! The white dragon roared into the sky as it attempted to escape the mountain range. Try to run? Yu Haoran laughed coldly when he saw the low-grade class 7 spirit vein attempting to escape. The giant palm that could blot out the sky sealed off all of the white dragon's escape routes. After that, the giant palm quickly closed up and caught the 100-meter-long white dragon in its palm. After that, the giant palm forcefully threw the white dragon directly into the blood river. Following that, the devouring power forcefully dragged the struggling white dragon into the blood river. Zhongli Shuiqin immediately reacted to Yu Haoran's sudden attack on the ground of the Blood Mist Mountains, and the white dragon formed from the low-grade, Class 7 spirit vein. Without any delay, she immediately appeared above the mountain range in a flash. After that, she used the same method to search for and capture the spirit veins beneath the mountain range. After looking at each other, Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang immediately joined in the search for the spirit veins. With the help of Zhongli Mingjing, Zhongli Qingyang, and Zhongli Shuiqin, the speed at which they searched for the spirit veins increased by at least a dozen times. This was especially true for Zhongli Mingjing, who had reached the peak of the 9th grade martial god realm. Each time he attacked, he could capture at least 5 rank 6 spiritual veins or 3 rank 5 spiritual veins. Several dozen spirit veins were thrown into the river of blood and then transformed into pure energy by the devouring power, which was then absorbed by Wu Xingjun. Soon, the rising momentum in the blood river quickly broke through Emperor Wu's level 7 peak, Emperor Wu's level 8 peak, Emperor Wu's level 9 peak. When it reached the limit of level 9 peak, the momentum of the rising momentum gradually slowed down. Boom! Boom! Yu Haoran used 9 layers of origin energy and soul power to create 2 deep craters that were close to a kilometer in diameter. He also captured 2 white dragons that were over 5,000 meters in length. He then threw the white dragons into the river of blood as he reminded everyone in a loud voice. Zhengjun, use the ginseng fruit that I gave you. Then combine it with the spiritual energy of the spirit veins that you devoured and try your best to break through to the god realm. After hearing Yu Haoran's loud reminder, Wu Xingjun, who had merged into the blood river, floated to the surface of the river again. He then took out a special jade box from his storage ring and opened it. He quickly took out the ginseng fruit inside. Without any hesitation, he opened his mouth and swallowed the ginseng fruit. Then, Wu Zhengjun sank back into the river. With the 100 or so spirit veins that he had thrown into the blood river and the ginseng fruit that wasn't inferior to a rank 9 divine pill, it was completely enough to satisfy the energy that Wu Zhengjun needed to break through to the martial god realm. As a result, Yu Haoran didn't continue searching for spirit veins in the mountain range. Instead, he flashed back to the edge of the mountain range and waited for Wu Zhengjun's final transformation. At the same time, Zhongli Mingjing, Zhongli Qingyang, and Zhongli Shuiqin also returned to the edge of the mountain range. Thaling, who was also using his divine sense to search for high-quality spirit veins in the mountain range, didn't stop searching for spirit veins just because Yu Haoran had returned to the edge of the mountain range. This was because he had vaguely sensed a very familiar aura when the spirit veins under the mountain range had fled. It seemed like there was a spirit vein that had its own consciousness hidden under the Blood Fog mountain range. It had already advanced to rank 1 divine vein. Therefore, he had to immediately search for and lock onto the divine vein that could allow Yu Haoran's physical body, origin power, and soul power to reach the martial god realm. This was so that Yu Haoran's cultivation and strength wouldn't be surpassed by Wu Xingjun. As more than 100 spirit veins and ginseng fruits of different grades were devoured by Wu Xingjun, the aura in the blood river that had gradually stabilized started to rise rapidly again. Along with the rapid rise of the powerful aura, the dark clouds in the blood mist mountains within a radius of 100 miles, 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, tens of thousands of miles, quickly gathered. This caused the dark clouds above the mountains to become thicker and thicker, and also caused the atmosphere in the mountains to become more and more oppressive. Divine tribulation. Zhongli Mingjing muttered to himself with a complicated expression as he looked up at the dark clouds above the mountain range and sensed the lightning that was being nurtured in the dark clouds. After all, as a peak rank 9 martial god, Zhongli Mingjing had once been baptized by the divine tribulation in ancient times. What was the martial god realm? Seeing through the confusion of life and death, seizing the way of eternal life, obtaining an immortal body, and proving the perseverance of the martial way. Breaking through to the martial god realm could be said to be a provocation that defied the heavens and changed one's fate. In the face of a provocation that defied the heavens and changed one's fate, the heavens would definitely send down a destructive lightning tribulation as punishment for the provocation. Therefore, the divine tribulation was the second obstacle for Emperor Wu to break through to the martial god realm as a peak rank 9 martial god and a demigod. It was also the most dangerous process, and it was the easiest process to fail. Looking up at the dark clouds above the mountain range that were getting thicker, Yu Haoran's expression gradually became serious. This was because he realized that the lightning tribulation energy that was being nurtured in the dark clouds was approaching the level of the 3 great destructive lightning tribulations. He did not know if Wu Jingjun could withstand the 9 golden lightning bolts that descended from the divine tribulation with the help of the devourer physique that had just advanced. Yu Haoran, if the divine tribulation that is triggered when one breaks through to the martial god realm is an irresistible disaster for other living beings, then for Jingjun, who has the devourer physique, the divine tribulation is not dangerous at all. Instead, it is a source of energy that will allow his cultivation and strength to increase rapidly. It is an opportunity that can help him complete his transformation as soon as possible. Using the divine tribulation suppression of the underground spirit vein in the Blood Mist mountain range, Thaling had successfully found and locked onto the spirit vein that had advanced to the rank 1. Unexpectedly, he sensed Yu Haoran's nervousness. Without needing to think too much, Thaling knew the reason for Yu Haoran's nervousness. Therefore, he used a secret technique to secretly seal the spirit vein as he consoled him with a smile. That's good. After hearing Thaling's consolation, Yu Haoran let out a long sigh of relief. At the same time, he withdrew his gaze from the dark clouds above the mountain range. Then, he planned to remind Zhongli, Shuai-Qin, and the long-armed ape to retreat for a while. After all, the divine tribulation was a punishment for Wu Zhongjuan's breakthrough to the martial god realm. Chapter 1884. At the edge of the Blood Mist mountain range. When Yu Haoran turned around, intending to remind Zhongli Shuai-Qin and the long-armed ape to temporarily distance themselves from the Blood River to avoid being affected by the god's tribulation lightning, he unexpectedly felt an ethereal aura from the long-armed ape's body. Yu Haoran, who had experienced this many times before, did not need to guess too much to know that the long-armed ape was currently in a state of enlightenment. At the same time, he was even more aware of what the state of enlightenment meant to the long-armed ape, who possessed an inherited bloodline. Therefore, after softly hinting for Zhongli Shuai-Qin, Zhongli Mingjing, and Zhongli Qingyang to temporarily retreat, Yu Haoran immediately sought help from Thaling in his sea of consciousness. This was because one definitely could not be disturbed after entering a state of enlightenment. Even the slightest contact could cause the other party to break out of the state of enlightenment, thus causing the other party to lose the opportunity to transform. Simple. After hearing Yu Haoran's request for help, Thaling observed the long-armed ape for a while before replying with a smile. You only need to condense an independent space around the long-armed ape, then cut and move the independent space. Afterwards, Thaling used the space-time energy of the victor's main body to easily move the long-armed ape to a location 10,000 meters away from the Blood River. With Yu Haoran's fake cooperation, Zhongli Mingjing and Zhongli Qingyang did not discover the existence of Thaling. However, the shock they received from Yu Haoran's ability to cut and move space was not inferior to Wu Zhongjuan's advancement in the blood-sucking physique. After all, the ability to cut and move space involved extremely mysterious space-time energy and space-time laws. As more and more dark clouds gathered above the mountain range, thunderous rumbles could be heard from within the thicker and thicker clouds. Even though he was 10,000 meters away from the Blood River, Yu Haoran could still feel the heavy pressure brought about by the dark clouds. This immediately made him feel extremely nervous. Boom! As a dazzling golden lightning shot out from the thick dark clouds, a deafening roar resounded between heaven and earth. Accompanied by a deafening roar, golden lightning that looked like hair struck the river of blood, crossing the barrier of time and space. However, the golden lightning did not directly split open the blood river. Instead, it was forcefully dragged into the river by the devouring power formed by the blood river. Then, it was converted into pure energy by the devouring technique, which was absorbed by Wu Jingjun. Following that, not only did the rising aura in the blood river become more powerful, but it also faintly emitted a divine aura. Seeing that Wu Jingjun was able to directly absorb the energy of the lightning tribulation using the blood-devouring physique and devouring grand technique, Yu Haoran finally felt relieved. He began to look forward to what Wu Jingjun could achieve after successfully overcoming the lightning tribulation. Boom! The second bolt of lightning, which was as thick as a finger, quickly struck the river of blood. Then, it was forcefully devoured by the devouring force formed by the river of blood. Boom! The third bolt of tribulation lightning, which was as thick as an arm, was also devoured by the devouring force formed by the blood river. Afterwards, it was converted into pure energy and absorbed by Wu Jingjun. Boom! 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 After the fourth, fifth, and sixth bolts of tribulation lightning were forcefully devoured by Wu Jingjun, the lightning tribulation in the dark clouds suddenly stopped. Although the seventh bolt of tribulation lightning did not immediately descend, Yu Haoran could also tell from the increasing pressure in the dark clouds and the dazzling lightning that flashed from time to time that the power of the seventh bolt of tribulation lightning would be far greater than the sum of the previous 6 bolts of tribulation lightning. It might even reach the extent of destroying the soul, severing divine thunder, and forming a lightning tribulation. Therefore, Wu Jingjun, who also sensed the change in the lightning tribulation, immediately changed his passive defense method. He quickly gathered and absorbed the blood river that drowned him, and then rushed straight to the dark clouds that were breeding the 7th bolt of tribulation lightning. Wu Jingjun's aggressive provocation immediately angered the lightning tribulation that was breeding more lightning attacks. Boom! Accompanied by a thunderous sound that was enough to shake the entire eastern region, the 7th bolt of golden lightning, which was as thick as a bucket, fiercely struck towards Wu Jingjun. Devour the heavens and earth. In the face of the 7th bolt of golden lightning, Wu Jingjun roared to the sky, and a black hole quickly formed in the palm of his left hand that was raised high. Then, as the black hole gradually left the palm of his hand, it quickly grew bigger, and soon its diameter reached 2 meters, and it was wider than the width of the 7th bolt of tribulation lightning. The 7th bolt of golden lightning, which crossed the barrier of time and space, struck the mouth of the black hole in the blink of an eye. As a result, not only did it not directly smash the black hole, but it was slowly pulled into the black hole by the suction force formed by the black hole. Finally, after being converted by the Devour Great technique, the 7th bolt of tribulation lightning turned into pure energy and was absorbed by Wu Jingjun. Boom! Just after Wu Jingjun swallowed the pure energy transformed by the 7th bolt of tribulation lightning, a deep sound of thunder suddenly came from his body. Accompanied by the deep sound of thunder, Wu Jingjun's cyan clothes were directly shaken into powder, and then a powerful body full of mysterious aura and texture was exposed. Divine tattoo appears, divine body is formed. With the help of the restraint of the spiritual pulse by the tribulation lightning, Faling successfully sealed the first rank holy pulse. He happened to see the texture on Wu Jingjun's body, So he used the space-time energy to secretly absorb the holy pulse and explained with a smile. Yu Haoran, it seems that Jingjun is very ambitious. Fowling, what do you mean? Yu Haoran asked in confusion. The advancement of the martial god realm is usually a breakthrough from the inside to the outside. First, the original energy advances to the divine power. Then the divine power drives the breakthrough of the spiritual soul. And finally, with the nourishment and assistance of the divine power and soul power, the process of the mortal body transforming into a divine body is realized. Looking at the texture that emitted a mysterious aura and integrated into Wu Zhengjuan's body, Fowling's eyes were filled with gratification. Zhengjun used the pure energy transformed by the god's tribulation lightning to achieve the divine body, which is the most difficult to break through. Then, the pure energy transformed by the next 2 bolts of tribulation lightning can easily achieve a breakthrough in the original energy and spiritual soul, and it can also assist in the rapid improvement of cultivation. I see. After hearing Fowling's explanation, Yu Haoran's eyes revealed a hint of understanding, and he nodded. He gradually had a clear idea of his next breakthrough. Boom! Just as Wu Jingjun swallowed the energy of the 7th bolt of tribulation lightning, the 8th bolt of tribulation lightning struck out from the dark clouds. However, unlike the previous 7 bolts of tribulation lightning, the 8th bolt of tribulation lightning was not a single bolt of lightning, but a golden thunderstorm that filled the sky, as if it was a special method of the god's tribulation to deal with the black hole. Swallow everything. Chapter 1885. At the edge of the Blood Mist mountain range. Boom! As Wu Zhengjun extended his finger, a beam of dark red energy with an evil aura shot out from his fingertip and fused into the black hole. The black hole suddenly exploded, instantly turning into countless tiny fragments. Then, the countless tiny fragments started to spin rapidly, gradually forming tiny black holes that were only a few millimeters in diameter. Although the black holes were very small, the suction force formed by the black holes was very strong. The strong suction force started to devour the golden lightning rain that filled the sky. After receiving the pure energy from the countless black holes, Wu Zhengjun put on his green robe again and slowly closed his eyes. The aura that emerged from his body continued to strengthen. Boom! A thunderous sound that was only second to the sound of a mortal physique breaking through to a divine physique rang out from Wu Zhengjuan's body. This meant that the origin energy in his dantian had been successfully converted into a higher quality and more powerful divine power. Boom! In less than 10 seconds, another thunderous sound rang out from Wu Zhengjuan's body. This meant that his soul had also undergone a transformation and had advanced to an existence that could cultivate independently. Fowling, Jingjun can't have broken through to the martial god realm with just the pure energy converted from the first 8 bolts of lightning, right? Yu Haoran asked in disbelief. Breaking through to the martial god realm was like breaking through to the martial saint realm for Emperor Wu, martial saint realm, and so on. It was only after breaking through various auxiliary realms that one could complete the final advancement in cultivation. During the process of the bloodthirsty physique advancing to the bloodthirsty physique, not only did it allow Wu Zhengjuan's mental cultivation to break through to the martial god realm, but it also allowed him to directly comprehend the mysteries of the laws that belong to the bloodthirsty physique. Now, the grade of his physical body, origin energy, and soul power had all successfully broken through to the martial god realm. Next, he only needed to use a small portion of the pure energy converted from the lightning to complete the fusion of the mysteries of the laws and his soul. Then, he would officially become an immortal god. Then, what about the 9th bolt of lightning that was even more powerful and the reward after the lightning tribulation? That's right. Fowling nodded to confirm Yu Haoran's conjecture. Then, he held the divine vein that had shrunk by tens of thousands of times as he praised. Yu Haoran, that's why I said he's quite ambitious. Not only does Jingjun want to break through to the martial god realm in one go, his goal should be to reach the peak of third-grade martial god realm. After all, the lightning formed by the ninth lightning tribulation is not only the most powerful, but it also contains more pure lightning energy. At the same time, after the divine tribulation, there will be rich rewards from the heavenly Tao. After receiving Thaling's confirmation, Yu Haoran was truly happy for Wu Jingjun, but at the same time, he felt the pressure on his shoulders suddenly become much heavier. Ever since he had entered the clear wind peak of the 100 Qi Gate, he had always suppressed Wu Jingjun in terms of cultivation and strength. He had never been surpassed. However, this time, Wu Jingjun had used the advancement of his bloodthirsty physique to achieve a complete reversal in terms of cultivation and strength. With Wu Jingjun's temperament, he wouldn't change his attitude towards Yu Haoran just because his cultivation and strength had surpassed Yu Haoran's. However, through the memories of the Destiny Stone Steel, Yu Haoran knew that this reversal would have a great impact on his own luck and the impending disaster. Yu Haoran, look at this. When Thaling sensed Yu Haoran's mood instantly drop and that he was no longer paying attention to Wu Jingjun's tribulation, he didn't need to guess too much to know the reason for Yu Haoran's change in mood. Therefore, he directly raised the sealed divine vein in his hand and smiled as he gestured. A dragon. It was a small dragon that was only about 1 meter in length. A purple divine dragon that was emitting a strong divine aura. This is a divine vein that has reached the lower grade of the first level. Yu Haoran cried out in shock. Although the object in Thaling's hand was exactly the same as a divine beast divine dragon in terms of shape and aura, he was 100% sure that it was a lower grade of the first level divine vein that had already condensed a divine soul. That's right. Thaling nodded as he confirmed. He then smiled as he explained the specific origin of the divine vein in his hand. When Yu Haoran heard that the lower grade of the first level divine vein that Thaling had obtained was actually from the blood mist mountains in front of him, a strange thought suddenly flashed through his mind as he calmed down. Thaling, is it possible that there are lower grade of the first level divine veins in the 10 forbidden lands of the Tianxian continent? Yu Haoran speculated, full of anticipation. That's right. After nodding to confirm Yu Haoran's speculation, Thaling added with a smile. Moreover, according to my understanding of the 10 forbidden lands of the Tianxian continent, the divine veins in the top few forbidden lands are not only lower grade of the first level, but also middle grade of the first level, upper grade of the first level, and peak grade of the first level, which is comparable to the half-tribulation supreme realm. Thaling, it seems that I need you to accompany me to the Death Swamp and Whitebone City after solving the problem of the ancient demon clan and the ancient celestial demon clan. After receiving further information from Thaling, Yu Haoran found a way to surpass Wu Jingjun in terms of cultivation and strength. Traces of cold light flashed in his eyes from time to time as he suggested. No problem. After the experience of the Bell of Chaos breaking down the mark of chaos by itself, Thaling no longer desired to break away from the victor. Although he no longer needed to use the energy of the origin of the 5 elements to reconstruct his physical body, the Death Swamp, which ranked 2nd, and Whitebone City, which ranked 8th, had treasures that could allow him to return to the peak of the Supreme Realm. Therefore, Thaling smiled and nodded in agreement to Yu Haoran's suggestion. Thaling, I'll have to trouble you to wipe out the divine veins and condense the consciousness in the divine soul. After Jingjun completes his breakthrough to the martial god realm, I'll use the lower grade of the first level spiritual vein to directly break through to the martial god realm. The sooner he surpassed Wu Jingjun in strength, the less impact it would have on his own luck and dealing with disasters. Therefore, after a short consideration, Yu Haoran made the decision to use the lower grade of the first level spiritual vein to immediately increase his strength. Okay, give me 5 minutes. While nodding in agreement to Yu Haoran's request, Thaling also gave him the time to wipe out the consciousness of the divine veins. During the time he was talking with Thaling, Wu Jingjun used the all-devouring secret method to completely devour the golden thunderstorm formed by the 8th thunder tribulation. At this time, Wu Zhangjun, who was standing in the air, not only looked more handsome, but also emitted a trace of evil temperament, which added a kind of charming charm to him. Chapter 1886. At the edge of the Blood Mist Mountain Range. After the 8th lightning tribulation, the 9th lightning tribulation did not immediately descend from the dark clouds above the mountain range. Instead, the dark clouds above the entire mountain range began to gather rapidly, accompanied by the pure roar of a dragon. Zhongli Mingjing, who had walked to Yu Haoran's side, looked up at the gathering dark clouds above the mountain range and listened to the pure roar of a dragon. His eyes revealed a look of reminiscence as he sighed emotionally. Regardless of whether it's a human warrior, a demon beast, or any other living being, when their cultivation breaks through to the martial god realm, they will all be baptized by the divine tribulation thunder punishment. However, the strength of the divine tribulation thunder punishment is related to the living being's talent, potential, perseverance, comprehension, physique, and luck. The more outstanding the living being's talent, potential, perseverance, comprehension, physique, and luck are, the more powerful the divine tribulation thunder punishment will be when they break through to the martial god realm. On the other hand, the more powerful the divine tribulation thunder punishment is, the more benefits one will gain from the baptism of the divine tribulation thunder punishment. The two can be said to complement each other. At this point, Zhongli Mingjing looked at Wu Zhangjun, who was standing in the air in high spirits, with envy and joy in his eyes. Ever since the ancient martial arts were created, there has been a saying in the world. This saying has been personally verified by more than 10 peak honorable powerhouses and has become an iron law. Zhongli Mingjing retracted his gaze from Wu Zhangjun and looked straight into Yu Haoran's eyes, solemnly saying each word. The divine tribulation dragon transformation will definitely become honorable. As if responding to Zhongli Mingjing's judgment, just as he finished speaking, a pure dragon roar that was loud enough to resound through the entire Tianxian continent came from the dark clouds that were getting thicker and thicker. Roar. Accompanied by a dragon roar that resounded through the clouds, a golden yellow divine dragon with a head the size of a mountain slowly flew out from the dark clouds. 100 meters, 1,000 meters, 10,000 meters, 100,000 meters, 1,000,000 meters. Yu Haoran's expression gradually turned serious when he saw the golden divine dragon's body that was 1,000 kilometers long rushing out of the dark clouds. He saw the golden divine dragon's cold and emotionless gaze that was like the laws of heaven. This was because he sensed a very strong and deadly aura from the golden divine dragon formed by the 9th lightning tribulation. In other words, the golden divine dragon formed by the 9th lightning tribulation could very likely be a second-grade martial god or above. Although Wu Zhangjun had successfully reached the martial god realm, he was far from being a match for the golden divine dragon divine tribulation thunder punishment realm. Pagoda spirit, did you help Zhangjun kill the golden dragon formed by the 9th bolt of lightning without triggering the god's tribulation lightning? Yu Haoran, don't worry. Thowling comforted him with a smile as he wiped out and cleaned the intelligence in the divine veins divine soul. Although Zhangjun is not a match for the golden divine dragon formed by the 9th lightning tribulation for the time being, the devouring skill and the devouring physique can restrain the golden divine dragon. Therefore, he will be able to devour the divine dragon safely and achieve a great improvement in his cultivation and strength. Wu Zhangjun, who was standing in the air, seemed to confirm the tower genie's words of comfort and judgment. When he saw the golden dragon charging out of the dark clouds, not only did he not show the slightest fear, he even approached it as fast as lightning. When he was less than 100 meters away from the golden dragon, Wu Zhangjun abruptly stopped his sprint, then stretched out his arms and roared. Boundless blood sea. As Wu Zhangjun roared, his body suddenly exploded. The blood rain falling from the sky quickly gathered into a sea of blood. It was a sea of blood that emitted a strong smell of blood. It was a sea of blood that could quickly cover the golden divine dragon. Ow! Just as the sea of blood, transformed by Wu Xingjun, quickly covered the golden divine dragon, the golden divine dragon, who was unwilling to be devoured, roared angrily. With an angry roar, the golden divine dragon began to fight back violently. As the golden divine dragon fought back violently, the whole sea of blood seemed to boil like hot water. Thaling, who had successfully wiped out the divine veins' divine soul, wanted to remind Yu Haoran that he could improve his cultivation with the help of the divine veins' divine vein to avoid being overtaken by Wu Xingjun. However, he was surprised to see that the golden divine dragon could rush out of the sea of blood from time to time and use the thunder tribulation to consume the energy of the sea of blood. A trace of confusion flashed in his eyes. According to his understanding of the devouring physique and the devouring skill, the divine dragon wrapped in the sea of blood should not have such a powerful counterattack. Therefore, he directly mobilized the space-time energy of his body, Victor, and then took the risk to check the golden divine dragon with the help of his divine thoughts. He immediately found the golden divine dragon's abnormality and hurriedly reminded Thaling. Oh no! The damned divine consciousness intervened in the divine tribulation and allowed the golden divine dragon to offset the devouring power. After hearing Thaling's reminder, Yu Haoran, who was originally relaxed, suddenly became nervous and asked with a gloomy face, "Thaling, what should I do?" Yu Haoran, use the Yuan Killer Sword and Avicii Divine Sword to wipe out the consciousness of the divine tribulation given by the divine consciousness, and help Wu Xingjun devour the golden divine dragon formed by the ninth thunder tribulation. At the same time, Thaling was already thinking of a way to deal with it. Therefore, after hearing Yu Haoran's question, he hurriedly ordered, "Thaling, this is the thunder tribulation that the heavenly way sent down when Xingjun broke through to the martial god realm. If I intervene, won't I be provoking the heavenly way?" Yu Haoran could not help but frown and remind Thaling's order. "If I provoke the heavenly way completely, not only will I not be able to help Xingjun, but I will also have to bear the punishment of the divine tribulation." "Yu Haoran, it's okay." After shaking his head to deny Yu Haoran's reminder, Thaling quickly explained. "First of all, the Spirit Destroyer can secretly increase the power of the divine tribulation by manipulating the divine consciousness. Therefore, it must have shielded the heavenly way from sensing the divine tribulation beforehand. Even if you attack the divine dragon formed by the divine tribulation, it will not attract the attention of the heavenly way. Secondly, with your identity as the Chosen One, the Destiny Stone Tablet, and the Destiny-stealing Spirit Rat's influence on the manipulation of fate, you are qualified to talk to the heavenly way. Even if the heavenly way discovers that you have interfered with the divine tribulation, it will not take the risk to deal with you." Chapter 1887. The Edge of the Blood Mist Mountains. Yu Haoran did not waste any more time after hearing Thaling's 3 reasons. He took out the Yuan Massacre Sword and Avicii Holy Sword from Victor and rushed to the golden dragon surrounded by the Blood Sea. "Elixir God, you come back quickly. No one is allowed to interfere with the god's tribulation. You will be punished by the rules of heaven." Yu Haoran's action of charging towards the blood river with his sword in hand gave Zhongli Mingjing a fright. Zhongli Mingjing hurriedly warned Yu Haoran loudly as he wanted to interfere with the serious consequences of the divine tribulation lightning. "Senior Mingjing, don't worry. I have my own way to deal with the god's tribulation. I won't be punished." After replying to Zhongli Mingjing's reminder, Yu Haoran directly performed the Peak Divine level sword technique from the Destiny Stone Tablet's memory inheritance and slashed at the dragon that had just rushed out of the Blood Sea. Puff! Puff! Although the Yuan Massacre Sword and Avicii Holy Sword were swords that targeted the divine soul as top primordial spiritual treasures, they were as sharp as the 4 swords of slaying. Moreover, They were enhanced by the peak divine level sword technique. Therefore, the two blood-red sword chi condensed from the divine sword successfully broke through the golden divine dragon's powerful physical defense and also directly injured the spirit of three annihilations while in the divine dragon's sea of consciousness. Roar. The golden dragon roared angrily and forcibly broke free from the blood sea. It then rushed to Yu Haoran fiercely. Wu Jingjun, who also knew the consequences of intervening in the divine tribulation thunder punishment, asked Yu Haoran loudly when he saw his senior brother risking his life to help. He didn't continue to use the means of transforming into a sea of blood to deal with the divine tribulation divine dragon. Senior brother, I can deal with the God's tribulation dragon condensed by the ninth thunder tribulation, so please quickly retreat to the edge of the mountain. Don't risk interfering with my God's tribulation. Yu Haoran explained with a chuckle after avoiding the God's tribulation divine dragon with the help of the flashing rule force. Zhengjun, there's no need to worry. Elder Pagoda has already taught me how to block the surveillance of the heavenly Tao. I guarantee that I won't be implicated by the divine tribulation lightning. Thowing had already appeared in front of Palace, Yunxiang, and Du Yuan when they were in the soul-sculpting space created by the Yushu Temple. Therefore, after returning to the prince's mansion, Yu Haoran had secretly informed Qin Lingfei, the sword without trace, and Wu Zhengjun about it. He had even recommended them to meet and interact with each other. Wu Zhengjun, who had a blind worship for Thowing, immediately heaved a sigh of relief after hearing Yu Haoran's explanation. At the same time, when he looked at the God's tribulation divine dragon that had turned around to kill him, his eyes immediately filled with fierce, killing intent. Due to the fact that the spirits of three annihilation had given the God's tribulation divine dragon the means to restrain the devouring power, Wu Zhengjun had lost the means to directly injure the God's tribulation divine dragon before completely consolidating his breakthrough. Therefore, Yu Haoran directly threw the Avicii divine sword in his hand to Wu Zhengjun and introduced it to him. Zhengjun, this is the top primordial spiritual treasure, the Avicii divine sword. It has the ability to directly injure the divine soul. At the same time, its sharpness and attack power are not inferior to the immortal trapping sword. Blood devouring the world. Wu Zhengjun extended his hand and approached the Avicii divine sword that Haoran had given him. He felt a sense of intimacy with the sword as it fused with his mind and body. This allowed Wu Zhengjun to immediately understand the true origins of the Avicii divine sword. He also knew that he could use 1/3 of the Avicii divine sword's power. Therefore, he did not listen to Yu Haoran's explanation at all. He directly waved the Avicii divine sword in his hand, and then combined it with the inherited swordsmanship that he had obtained during the advancement of his blood-devouring physique, fiercely chopping at the God's tribulation divine dragon. Seeing that the sword chi condensed by Wu Zhengjun's swordsmanship with the help of the Avicii divine sword was not only far stronger than his own strength, reaching the peak of the third-level martial god realm, but also possessing the preliminary level of spiritual bestowment, Yu Haoran was extremely shocked. He could not help but ask Thowing in his sea of consciousness. Thowing, are the Yuan Massacre divine sword and the Avicii divine sword specially prepared for people with the blood-devouring physique? That's right. Nodding to confirm Yu Haoran's guess, Thowing said with a complicated look in his eyes. As the top of the innate spiritual treasures, the Yuan Massacre divine sword and the Avicii divine sword have reached the supreme level. The reason why the two divine swords are not famous is that they lack a master who can truly exert their origin energy. And the blood-devouring physiques, meticulous use of blood essence can stimulate the origin energy in their bodies, so that they can truly exert the power of the supreme swords. As if to confirm Thowing's introduction, Wu Zhengjun's sword chi, with the help of the Avicii divine sword, not only directly broke the tough physical defense of the God's tribulation divine dragon, but also took the opportunity to cut off one of its dragon horns. Wu Zhengjun quickly raised his left hand to collect the dragon horn that had fallen to his side. Then, he utilized the great devouring art to absorb the dragon horn formed from pure lightning. Ow! With a trace of consciousness given by the three spirits of destruction, the god's tribulation divine dragon already had a trace of life. Therefore, after losing an important dragon horn, the severe pain and anger made the god's tribulation divine dragon roar to the sky like thunder. After the roar, the god's tribulation divine dragon directly opened its bloody mouth like a mountain and spat out two balls of burning thunder and lightning at Yuhaoran and Wu Xingjun. Yuhaoran. This is a trace of the origin energy of thunder secretly given to the god's tribulation divine dragon by the consciousness of heaven. It can not only refine a lower-level one holy pulse, but also has a powerful effect of refining the body and spirit. Seeing Yuhaoran wave the Yuan massacre, divine sword in his hand, and intend to attack the thunder and lightning flames, Thowling in the sea of consciousness hurriedly reminded him. Therefore, what you need to do now is not to resist the thunder and lightning flames, but to refine a lower-level one holy pulse with the help of the thunder and lightning flames to improve your cultivation and strength. After hearing Thowling's reminder, Yuhaoran immediately put away the Yuan massacre divine sword in his hand, bent his knees, and sat down cross-legged, and then let the thunder and lightning flames envelop and attack him. At the same time, Thowling also directly moved the lower-level one holy pulse out of the sea of consciousness, letting it bear the attack of the thunder and lightning flames at the same time. What's the matter with the god's tribulation thunder punishment? Why didn't its power increase? What's the mysterious origin of Yuhaoran? Chapter 1888. At the edge of the Blood Mist Mountain Range. As a top divine spirit expert who had proven his Tao in the recent ancient times and had the complete inheritance of a hidden family, Zhongli Mingjing was very familiar with the formation of the god's tribulation lightning punishment and the nature of the heavenly Tao. Even though the heavenly Tao had temporarily lost its monitoring of the Tianxian continent due to the transformation of the heavenly Tao in its dormant state. However, Yuhaoran's forceful intervention in Wu Zhongjuan's god's tribulation lightning punishment was a blatant provocation to the heavenly Tao and a trampling on the iron law set by the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao should instinctively take action to punish. It should not choose to sit by and do nothing, unless Yuhaoran had the means to not be detected by the heavenly Tao. According to the records in the family library, only the spirits of three annihilation, who could control the consciousness of the heavens, and the child of destiny, who could control fate, had the means to hide from the heavenly Tao. Therefore, Zhongli Mingjing had doubts about Yuhaoran's true identity. He suspected that he might have an identity with a special mission. Qingyang, give me a detailed introduction of the Yushu Temple's heavenly palace master, Jixing's growth, including some of his private life and nature. Since he already had doubts in his heart, Zhongli Mingjing immediately planned to use the method of comparison to verify whether his previous guess was correct. If his guess was wrong, then so be it. However, if his guess was correct, then the union of Wu Xingjun and Zhongli Shuiqin would bring unimaginable benefits to the Zhongli family. Yes, after Zhongli Qingyang responded, he began to introduce Jixing's life in detail, as well as some of his private life that only the top forces knew. Pain. When the lightning flames touched his skin, an unimaginable pain caused Yuhaoran's expression to turn ferocious. The pain caused by the lightning flames was not only physical torture, but also a heavy blow to the deepest part of his soul. Even though he had the tenacity of 2 lifetimes, the dual torture of his body and soul made him somewhat unable to hold on. He wanted to give up and escape. Yuhaoran, consolidate your foundation and focus your mind. Use the heavenly mandate mantra to absorb the pure spiritual energy. Seeing that Yuhaoran only knew how to endure the pain caused by the lightning flames and didn't absorb a part of the divine vein's spiritual energy that had been extracted, Thowling immediately used a special secret method to remind him. Using the Thowling's special secret method to temporarily awaken his consciousness, Howard hurriedly activated his self-created heavenly mandate mantra, and then gradually guided the pure spiritual energy that surrounded him into his body. As soon as the pure spiritual energy entered his physical body, which had been tortured by the lightning and flames, began to devour it like a hungry man who had seen a delicious meal. No matter if it was an exotic flower, herb, or treasure, as long as it reached the first level, it would be able to advance to the God level, and the quality of the spiritual energy and energy it contained would also undergo a transformation. The quality of the pure spiritual energy contained in the low-grade, first-level divine vein was not inferior to the divine power condensed by a martial God expert. This was also the reason why Thaling was confident that Howard could use the low-grade, first-level divine vein to surpass Wu Xingjun in strength. Therefore, the moment the pure spiritual energy entered his body, Howard could clearly feel that the grade of his physical body had advanced by leaps and bounds, even though his consciousness was not very clear. Boom! 5 seconds later, a muffled sound of thunder resounded from Howard's body. Mysterious patterns immediately appeared on his ancient bronze body under his blue clothes. 1, 2, 3. In the end, the number of patterns that appeared reached 99. Fortunately, under the cover of the blue clothes, Zhongli Mingjing did not see the number of mysterious patterns that appeared on the surface of Howard's physical body. Otherwise, he would not have needed to understand Howard's life experience and temperament to be able to confirm Howard's identity. This was because the grade of the physical body, the number of mysterious patterns condensed when advancing to the martial God realm represented how high one's martial achievement was. For example, the achievement of condensing 99 mysterious patterns was basically the limit of a living being's potential. The moment the 99 mysterious patterns merged with his physical body, a tyrannical and powerful aura quickly rose, directly dispersing the lightning and flames that enveloped him, and rushed to the gathering dark clouds in the sky. Just as the tyrannical and powerful aura was about to enter the dark clouds, Thaling in the sea of consciousness hurriedly reminded, Howard, immediately control the aura of your breakthrough. You cannot disturb the dark clouds that symbolize the laws of heaven, nor can you completely block the lightning and flames tempering. The tyrannical and powerful aura dispersed the lightning and flames that surrounded Howard, causing him to quickly wake up from the double torment of pain. Therefore, after hearing Thaling's reminder, he immediately withdrew the tyrannical and powerful aura that erupted when his physical body broke through and let the lightning and flames envelop him again. At the same time, because his physical body had successfully advanced to the martial God realm, his pain tolerance had increased by at least 10 times. Even if Howard was roasted by the lightning and flames again, he would not lose consciousness because of the pain. After Howard was once again enveloped by the lightning and flames, Thaling in the sea of consciousness continued to remind him, Howard, continue to use the pure spiritual power of your divine veins to improve your physical body grade and Yuanli. Try to guide the lightning and flames to temper your spirit in the sea of consciousness. Try to let your spirit and Yuanli advance to the martial God realm at the same time. All right, Howard was obviously a little hesitant about Thaling's suggestion of tempering his spirit. This was because compared to a strong physical body that could withstand a certain amount of damage, a little damage to the fragile spirit would cause great harm to the entire body, which would affect the subsequent breakthrough of the auxiliary realm. However, if he used the lightning and flames to temper his spirit, it would be able to break away from its fragile side and become as hard as a physical body. In this way, not only would he be able to withstand more powerful attacks, but it would also be an unimaginable help to him when he tried to break through to the supreme realm in the future. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, Howard finally decided to take the risk and try it. He clenched his teeth and guided a trace of the lightning and flames into the sea of consciousness through his glabella. Then, it slowly merged into his spirit at the speed of a turtle. Pain. The pain of his spirit being torn apart made him feel as if he would rather die. However, compared to the pain caused by the lightning and flames just now, this pain was not beyond the limit of what he could bear. Therefore, even though his entire face was distorted by the pain, Yuhaoran still maintained a clear mind and was still able to control the lightning and flames to temper his spirit. Chapter 1889. Above the blood-mist mountains. After 99 times of tempering, the pain of his soul being torn apart had completely disappeared. His divine soul was as strong as a supreme-grade venerable realm defensive magic weapon and had reached the level of martial god. Feeling that the power of the thunder flame was weakening, Yuhaoran did not waste any more time and immediately absorbed the purified spiritual power to break through to the martial god realm. Boom! Boom! The moment the thunder flame completely disappeared, two muffled thunders came from Yuhaoran's body. A terrifying aura that could shatter the void quickly rose from his body. However, in less than 3 seconds after the terrifying aura appeared, it disappeared without a trace. It did not disturb the dark clouds above the mountains at all. His state of mind cultivation, physical grade, divine power, and divine soul had all been successfully upgraded. Next, he only needed to integrate the mysteries of the law of life and death into his divine soul to directly break through to the divine soul realm. However, with the experience of breaking through to the martial sage, martial venerable, and Emperor Wu, he would not consider breaking through to the martial god realm in a short time. Yuhaoran slowly opened his eyes and looked at Wu Zhengjun, who was fiercely fighting the deity tribulation Shenlong with the help of the Avicii divine sword. Yuhaoran, whose strength had increased by leaps and bounds, let out a long laugh. He immediately took out the Yuan killer sword and rushed toward the deity tribulation Shenlong. Soul break. Mobilizing all the strength he had just broken through, together with the Yuan killer sword, he performed the peak divine level sword technique inherited from the Destiny Stone tablet to directly attack the deity tribulation divine dragon's huge head. With the help of the consciousness given by the spirit of three annihilation and the remaining thunder energy of the deity tribulation, the deity tribulation divine dragon, condensed by the ninth thunder tribulation, had the strength of an early third-grade martial god. Wu Zhengjun, who was constantly consolidating his realm through the battle, was able to quickly increase his combat strength from the early martial god realm to the peak of second-grade martial god realm. At the same time, with the help of the top innate spiritual treasure sword, his combat strength was further enhanced. Therefore, in the face of Wu Zhengjun, who was not much weaker than himself and dared to risk his life, the deity tribulation divine dragon began to be at a disadvantage. His confident laughter made the deity tribulation dragon turn its head to take a look while resisting Wu Zhengjun's attack. When it saw Yuhaoran rushing over with the Yuan killer sword in his hand, a trace of panic flashed across the dragon's huge eyes. When it sensed the sharp sword intent from Yuhaoran's swordsmanship that had reached the peak of the third-grade martial god realm, its panicked expression was immediately replaced by fear. Pooh! Pooh! Under the influence of fear, Wu Zhengjun immediately grasped the flaw of the deity tribulation divine dragon. The sharp sword qi condensed from the Avicii divine sword in his hand forcefully broke the tough defense of the deity tribulation divine dragon's body and almost cut it in half. At the same time, Yuhaoran's sharp sword qi struck the deity tribulation divine dragon's head, almost splitting it in half. Roar! The deity tribulation divine dragon could not bear the pain of being almost cut in half or having its head almost cut in half. Knowing that it could not resist the joint attack of Yuhaoran and Wu Zhengjun, the deity tribulation divine dragon was influenced by the consciousness bestowed by the three spirits of destruction. After it roared at the sky, a violent and destructive aura quickly rose from its body. Zhengjun retreat quickly. The violent and destructive aura made Yuhaoran immediately guess the deity tribulation divine dragon's idea. He quickly reminded Wu Zhengjun with a sudden change of expression. Senior brother, retreat first. Wu Zhengjun, who also knew the deity tribulation divine dragon's plan, did not listen to Yu Haoran's order. Instead, he sped up and rushed toward the deity tribulation divine dragon. Boundless Blood Sea. When he was less than 3 meters away from the deity tribulation divine dragon, Wu Zhengjun suddenly roared and exploded his body first. Then, countless blood instantly gathered into a blood sea, directly wrapping around the deity tribulation divine dragon that was about to explode. Under the influence of the devouring aura in the blood sea, the violent thunder and lightning energy that had been stimulated in its body was drawn out uncontrollably from the wound on its waist and head. Then, after being transformed by the blood sea devouring technique, it was turned into pure energy and absorbed by Wu Zhengjun. Roar. The loss of the violent thunder and lightning energy in its body completely destroyed the deity tribulation divine dragon's idea of dying together with Yu Haoran and Wu Zhengjun through self-explosion. After it let out an unwilling cry, it had no choice but to give up the idea of continuing to struggle and let Wu Zhengjun devour the thunder and lightning energy that had condensed into its body. There was no roar of self-explosion, only an unwilling cry. Yu Haoran, who had already guessed that the deity tribulation divine dragon had completely given up resisting, flashed back to the edge of the blood mist mountains. Then he sat down cross-legged in the air and began to consolidate the power that had broken through. Looking at Yu Haoran, who was sitting down cross-legged, although his cultivation had not directly advanced to the immortal martial god realm, the aura emitted from his body was not inferior to that of a peak third-grade martial god. Zhongli Mingjing, who had already guessed his true thoughts, had a complicated look in his eyes. Through Zhongli Qingyang's description of Ji Xing's life experience, and then combined with Yu Haoran's actions just now, he could basically confirm his true identity. However, when he thought of the harm that his family had caused to Ji Xing and the accumulated hatred between them, the complicated look in his eyes was gradually replaced by determination. After that, Zhongli Mingjing withdrew a blank jade slip from the independent space he'd created, and he used his divine sense to record 9 types of top-rate precious treasures within the jade slip. After that, he passed the jade slip to Zhongli Qingyang and instructed, "Qingyang, once we return to Sunset Lake, immediately go to the family's secret storehouse and take out the 9 treasures marked in the jade slip." Zhongli Qingyang asked with a shocked expression after he received the jade slip from Zhongli Mingjing and scanned it with his mind. "Ancestor Mingjing, what are you planning to do with these treasures? Don't ask too much for now. I'll give you a satisfactory answer after this." Zhongli Mingjing was only guessing. Before he received Yu Haoran's personal confirmation, or before he used a special treasure to examine the treasures, Zhongli Mingjing did not want to reveal this secret that could shake the entire profound sky continent. As a result, he could only answer Zhongli Qingyang's questions vaguely. Just as Zhongli Mingjing finished answering Zhongli Qingyang's questions, Yu Haoran, who was consolidating his cultivation, suddenly opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the central region. "Pill guide you, what's wrong?" Yu Haoran's unexpected gaze in the direction of the central region immediately attracted Zhongli Mingjing's attention. He immediately used his peak 9th grade martial god divine sense to investigate. However, he found nothing in the end. "A friend has come from afar." Chapter 1890. The Edge of the Blood Mist Mountains. A friend is coming from afar. After hearing Yu Haoran's cold reminder, Zhongli Mingjing frowned slightly and immediately used his divine telekinesis to search the void in the direction of the central region again. However, the result was still fruitless. In fact, it was not only Zhongli Mingjing who did not discover his friend hiding in the void. Even Thaling, who was using the space-time energy in his sea of consciousness, did not find anything either. "Yu Haoran, are you mistaken?" Thaling asked with a puzzled look in his eyes. After all, with the quality of his divine telekinesis and the help of the space-time energy, He could even detect a supreme. In response, Yu Haoran did not reply to Thaling's question. Instead, he returned to the side of the blood sea that Wu Jingjun had transformed into and looked at the void 10,000 meters away with a provocative greeting in his eyes. Junior Yu Haoran greets Senior Huang Zhizhong, Senior Lan Jinzhan, Senior Lu Chuanqi, Senior Huaxing Weiwa, and Senior Shangwan Shumping. Unfortunately, in the face of Yu Haoran's provocative greeting, the void 10,000 meters away did not give any response. After hearing Yu Haoran's greeting, Zhongli Mingjing's expression changed slightly. He took a step forward and took out a green seed the size of a soybean. As he threw the green seed into the void 10,000 meters away, his 10 fingers quickly formed seals. When Zhongli Mingjing formed the first seal and merged with the green seed through the barrier of space-time, the green seed began to sprout at a speed visible to the naked eye. When all 9 seals had merged with the green seed had grown into a towering tree. Countless branches, leaves, and roots covered the entire void. At the same time, Thaling in his sea of consciousness immediately mobilized the 32 chaos seals and used his divine telekinesis to recheck the void that Yu Haoran was staring at. However, the result of the recheck was still fruitless. Yu Haoran did not stop Thaling and Zhongli Mingjing from using special methods and secret techniques to search. While he continued to observe the 10,000 meters of space, he also used his mind to discuss with the life-stealing spirit mouse how to deal with the enemy. In truth, the reason why he had been able to discover the enemy hiding in the void ahead of time and know their true origins and identity was completely because the fate calamity spirit mouse had sensed 5 auras of fate that were filled with intense hostility towards him approaching. Then, through the names carved on the destiny stone steel, he knew where they were hiding and their exact origins. "Master, there's some trouble," the black rat reminded with a serious expression as it retracted its claw from the name carved on the destiny stone steel. "When I used the destiny stone steel to control his fate, I felt that his fate aura contained a trace of something very special. It was somewhat similar to the protection of law power. Moreover, this trace of rule power is far stronger than mine. I'm afraid I won't be able to use fate manipulation to weaken it for the time being." Although Yu Haoran was slightly surprised by the fate calamity spirit mouse's warning, he was not too surprised. This was because the fate calamity spirit mouse had basically deduced that the 5 experts hiding in the void were only 7th grade to 9th grade martial gods based on the auras collected by the Destiny Stone Steel. With Thaling and Zhongli Mingjing's strength and the strength of their divine senses, it was impossible for the enemy to hide from their divine senses. However, the result was, even after using their trump cards and secret techniques, Thaling and Zhongli Mingjing were still unable to discover the enemy's existence. This was enough to prove that there was definitely an extremely powerful and terrifying existence secretly helping them. Combined with the fate calamity spirit mouse's discovery of the power of law in the enemy's sea of consciousness, Yu Haoran was 100% certain that the powerful and terrifying existence secretly helping them was definitely the spirit of heaven controlled by the 3 spirits of annihilation. Elixir Godyu, the technique I used just now, was a secret treasure and secret technique left behind by the eternal green ancestor. Even a supreme existence of the sovereign realm would not be able to avoid the control of the creaking leaves and roots of the divine tree. Zhongli Mingjing, who had not discovered anything, asked in a cautious tone as his eyes were filled with doubt after he withdrew the green seed that had turned into a towering tree. "Did you make a mistake?" Although Thaling in the sea of consciousness did not ask further, his eyes were also filled with doubt. In response, Yu Haoran's reply was very simple. He mobilized all his strength and combined it with the Yuan massacre sword in his hand to display the blood-red sword Qi condensed by the sword technique. He directly slashed at a point in the void 10,000 meters away. Boom! Just as the blood-red sword Qi was about to hit the spot that the divine sense had locked onto, an even more powerful sword Qi blocked the path of the blood-red sword Qi. After successfully dispersing the blood-red sword Qi, the powerful sword Qi slashed at Yu Haoran at lightning speed. Before Yu Haoran could block the powerful sword Qi, Zhongli Mingjing, who had taken a step forward, waved his sleeve and used the powerful wind from his sleeve to disperse the powerful sword Qi. Zhongli Mingjing said through gritted teeth as he watched a middle-aged man in his 40s walk out of the tear in space. He was dressed in a long green robe and looked to be in his 40s. The 128th sect master of the Flowing Cloud sect, Huang Zhizhong. So, it's the protection of the power of the rules. Thowing, who had also seen Huang Zhizhong walk out of the tear in the void, reminded Zhongli Mingjing with a solemn expression. Yu Haoran, this guy's cultivation is only at the peak of the 6th grade martial god. The reason he was able to avoid the detection of Zhongli Mingjing and my divine sense is because the spirit of 3 annihilation used the power of the rules bestowed by the heavens consciousness. In other words, the spirit of 3 annihilation, whose cultivation has reached the sovereign realm, might attack. So, you have to be careful. Got it. As he nodded in response to Thowing's reminder, Yu Haoran hurriedly used his divine sense to summon Qing Feng, Yu Siki, Lu Yuan, and Palace. Brother Lan, Brother Lu, Brother Hua, Brother Shangwan, since the other party has already discovered our presence, let's all come out and greet them. Ignoring Zhongli Mingjing, who was gnashing his teeth, Huang Zhizhong, who had a smug smile on his face, turned his head and called out to the empty void. As soon as Huang Zhizhong's voice fell, 4 forcibly torn rifts appeared in the void about 100 meters away from him at the same time. Then a white-haired old man in a blue robe, a silver-haired old man in a white robe, a middle-aged man in a black robe, and a middle-aged man in a brocade robe walked out. The 108th sect master of the Lan clan, Lan Zhenjian, Lu Chuanqi, who ranked 6th among the top 10 rogue cultivators in recent times, Hua Xingwei, the 103rd sect master of the Xindao school, and Shangwan Shunping, the 99th sect master of the Shangwan clan. Chapter 1891. In the void above the blood mist mountains. Just as Thowing and Yu Haoran had guessed, Huang Zhizhong and the others, whose cultivation and strength were far inferior to his, must have been helped by the spirit of annihilation, who had reached the supreme honorable stage and could control the will of the heavens. What worried Zhongli Mingjing even more was that Huang Zhizhong and the others were not only martial god stage divine spirit experts, but they also represented various top forces. Even Lu Chuanqi, who was a lone cultivator, had the loose alliance behind him that was no less powerful than the reclusive clans and top sections. Since Huang Zhizhong and the others had obeyed the spirit of annihilation's order to deal with Yu Haoran and Wu Jingjun, it meant that the forces behind them had chosen to ally with the Yushi Temple. The Lan and Shangwan clans of the reclusive clans, the Flowing Cloud sect and Xiandao school of the top sects, and the loose alliance with countless lone cultivators. The alliance of these top forces was enough to shake the 4 great guardian clans. Moreover, they had the spirit of annihilation, who could control the will of the heavens behind them. Brother Mingjing, we haven't seen each other for 36 million years after the Battle of Mount Tai. Just as Zhongli Mingjing was worrying about the Tianxian continent situation, 2 white-haired elders and 2 middle-aged men walked out of the void crack and came to Huang Zhizhong's side. Shangwan Shunping, who was dressed in luxurious clothes, looked at Zhongli Mingjing and sighed with a complicated expression. But what I never expected was that we would meet on the battlefield and fight to the death when we met again. Brother Shunping, among the hundreds of old friends from the Battle of Gods back then, less than 5 of us were able to survive the destruction of the ancient times and the long river of history. The fact that we were able to survive was not only because of the protection of Providence, but also because of luck. More importantly, we acted cautiously and did not participate in the disputes of any forces. Shangwan Xuanping's sigh immediately triggered Zhongli Mingjing's memories. He thought of how they had joined forces to fight the enemy in the Battle of Gods back then, and how they had drunk so much after their failure. Brother Shunping, why did you choose to become Spirit Destroyer's subordinate this time and work for the Yushu Temple so humbly? Brother Mingjing, with your cultivation and identity, you should know that the immeasurable calamity this time is completely different from the ancient times, middle times, and recent times. You won't be safe just by being cautious. Shangguan Shunping shook his head and replied, Brother Shunping, even if you're choosing to ally with them, you don't have to work with the cold, heartless, and inhumane spirits of destruction. Zhongli Mingjing tried his best to persuade him. Zhongli Mingjing, the three spirits of annihilation control the will of the heavens, and Destiny's Child decides the fate of the heavens. If we don't choose to work with the three spirits of annihilation and Destiny's Child, are we going to work with this lowly peasant beside you? Before Shangguan Shunping had time to respond to the persuasion, Lan Jinjian, who was standing beside him, immediately took a step forward, his eyes full of contempt and ridicule. Senior Brother Qingfeng, are you sure you can kill them? After hearing Lan Jinjian's ridicule, Yu Haoran's expression did not change, but an infinite killing intent immediately surged in his heart. However, Lan Jinjian's cultivation was at the early 7th level of the martial god realm. Under the premise that he could not control Lan Jinjian's fate, he was no match for him at all. Therefore, he could only ask Qingfeng, who had the strength to kill Lan Jinjian. In response to Yu Haoran's request for help, Qingfeng thought for a moment and then said with a frown, Junior Brother Yu, although the other party's cultivation doesn't seem to be high, for some reason, I can clearly feel that there is a power hidden in the other party's consciousness space that can kill me. Therefore, I have no confidence that I can successfully kill the other party. The power that could make Qingfeng, a peak 9th level martial god realm expert, feel a strong sense of fatal danger must be the rule power that the three spirits of annihilation gave to him through the will of the heavens. Therefore, as long as he could block the explosion and threat of the rule power, with Qingfeng's strength, he could easily kill Lan Jinjian and the other four. Therefore, Yu Haoran could only turn to Thaling for help. In response to Yu Haoran's request for help, Thaling shook his head and explained, Yu Haoran, unless my cultivation can recover to the peak of the martial god realm, I can't suppress the explosion of the rule power for the time being. Even Thaling, the innate treasure's device spirit, did not have the means to deal with the rule power. This made Yu Haoran very frustrated, and he had to consider a temporary retreat. Whether it was retreating to the Sunset Lake where the Zhongli family was located or to the prince's mansion in Fengrun City, with the top formation that integrated both attack and defense, he could completely resist and severely injure Lan Jinjian. However, when he saw Wu Jingjun, who was about to devour the 9th Tribulation Thunder and was about to receive the reward of the God's Tribulation Thunder, the thought of retreating in his heart was immediately extinguished. After all, the 9th Tribulation Thunder was only the foundation for Wu Zhengjun's transformation. The reward of the God's Tribulation Thunder was the key to his true transformation. Since Qingfeng and Thaling were unable to deal with Lan Zhenjian's group of 5 who were protected by the rule power, then he could only risk exposing Destiny's Child and the Destiny Stone Steel. By overdrawing 2/3 of his lifespan as the price, he could use the Destiny Stone Steel as a weapon to resist the rule power bestowed by the will of the heavens. Master, although I can't use the aura of destiny to weaken him, I can use the laws of destiny within the Destiny Stone Steel to restrict the power of the laws in his sea of consciousness so that he can't borrow the power of the laws. Just as Yu Haoran was about to overdraw his lifespan in exchange for the power to activate the Destiny Stone Steel, the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat, who had placed its claws on the Destiny Stone Steel again, suddenly reminded him, if Violet Spirit is willing to help, I can even use the Destiny Stone Steel to completely seal the rule power in their sea of consciousness, allowing Master to borrow the rule power to increase his comprehension of the profound mysteries of the laws. Abruptly stopping his action of overdrawing his lifespan, Yu Haoran forcefully suppressed his shock and asked, Brother Black Rat, are you sure? Master, Black Rat never lies. The Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat solemnly reminded him. Taking a deep breath and forcefully suppressing the joy in his heart, Yu Haoran told Thaling about the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat's idea of sealing the rule power. No problem. Thaling, who had a better understanding of the rule power, knew that not only could the rule power increase one's comprehension of the profound mysteries of the laws, it could also help Yu Haoran completely grasp the remaining spatial laws. Therefore, when faced with the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat suggestion, Thaling nodded in agreement without hesitation. After receiving Thaling's agreement, Yu Haoran turned his head and asked Qingfeng, "You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."